Please rise for invocation by Father Edgar Serrano of the Basilica of St. Paul, my home parish, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. Let us pray. Almighty God, you who are eternal, indivisible, and immutable, you who encompass everything in a single act, you God of power, we praise you, we adore you, and glorify you for your immense greatness. You create everything for us, but you create us for yourself. You create us in your image and likeness, and made us stewards of creation to take care of it. It is from that loving trust in you that your children, we gather today to thank you and ask you for your guidance and protection. Today we thank you for all the favors received in our city. We pray for our elected officials, the businesses, the churches, the families, and the people who make our city the great place that it is. Father, you call each of us in our various offices to fulfill the mission of our Lord Jesus Christ, who you anointed as priest, prophet, and king. Bless the word of this city council meeting. May your deliberations be holy and judicious. May your decision be full of charity and compassion. Give success to all this work and joy to our entire city of Port Orange. Father, may everything we do begin with your inspiration and continue with your saving help. Let our work always find its origin in you and through you reach completion. It is true, Lord, that together we can continue to maintain a high quality of life. Then, out of that hope, we surrender to you, allowing us to listen when we need to listen, speak when we need to speak, and approve or reject what you know is best for us and for the common good. Father, we surrender to your divine will in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Foley?
Here.
Councilman Grubbs?
Here.
Councilman Bastian?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Here.
Mayor Burnett?
Here. All are present. We have a full quorum. Proclamations and recognition. I've got 4 of these here. I'm going to call the names. If you're present, come join us at the podium, and I will recognize you. Eric Jacob Benosa Dawes. Jordan Snipes. Jordan. David Arthur Strassel. And Alexander Sertelli. I think I've got... The point of this recognition right now is to recognize individuals that have gone out of their way to back up our community and be there for people when they need it most. One of those has gotten a little bit of publicity, first negatively in social media because nobody knew why he wasn't here, and then most positively once everybody did, is Councilman Tracy Grubbs. You know, this I can say about my friend. If there's anybody that wakes up thinking about the people around him more than him, I don't know who it is. He went through a horrifying incident after a tree fell on his leg trying to clear sidewalks so that after a hurricane, we knew that there would be safe paths to school. And I am not going to ask him to get up and join us down here because that would be a little difficult after the surgery. Some of you that are in here before saw how difficult it was for him just to get up the stairs. In jest last week, I made a joke about him not being on painkillers, and I did that in jest half seriously because, first of all, he's my friend and I can joke with him a little bit. And second of all, he got roasted on social media when people didn't even know what the story was. I didn't want them thinking that he was coming to here and making a vote, and after the fact, people assuming he was on painkillers making those votes. This is the most selfless man I know, and I'm proud to serve with him. And this is my last meeting, and he's going to continue, and Port Orange is going to be in good hands under his leadership. And do me a favor, tell me your name. Alexander Sertelli. Do me a favor, step up and tell your story a little bit.
I don't know really much to say. I work for Tracy. I always joke with him every day I come to work, and there's no other person I'd rather stand behind than Tracy.
Okay. David, right?
No, David's not here. I'm his wife, Cindy.
Okay, there you go. So we got a David, David's wife. It doesn't say wife on there.
That's okay.
And you must be Eric because I'm running out of these. I'm going to present that to each and every one of you, and we're going to take a picture. But what I want to do is go up to the top of the dais and take a picture because I want Tracy to get this picture with you guys. The work that you all did and what your husband did to help back him up.
Sorry.
Is that him? We want to talk to him. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, bring him on to.
He's coaching soccer right now, so.
Oh, definitely bring him on FaceTime then.
Okay, so he's got an excuse.
He does.
What you did and what he did to back him up was incredible. And right now, I'd like you to be able to go, just stand behind him. Where's Mike? Mike's
There's our photo guy.
But come on up. And I guess it's appropriate that you're standing behind Tracy because you went through this effort with him and you were standing behind him then.
Oh no, they need choke me out for this.
We'll always stand behind Tracy.
Here we go.
Good stuff.
And at this point, I would ask everybody to give them a rousing hand.
Yes.
We'll do it again for you, Tracy.
I know.
Great job.
Let's hope
I just
there's
took you out.
no time soon.
Nobody bump into him.
Sounds like there's a lot of pay raises coming down at the dive shop. No better time like the present, guys.
Scott, I hate it when you hold back and don't tell us what you really think. With that, consent agenda, item 5, public comments on items on the consent agenda. Anyone wish to comment on the items that are on consent? There being none, may I have a motion for approval of the agenda for the evening?
So moved.
A second.
We have a motion and a proper second. I'm going to give that second to Drew, seeing it's his last chance to second some motions tonight.
Yeah.
And with that, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda for the evening is approved. May I have a motion in regards to the consent items 7 through 16?
Move to approve consent agenda items 7 through 16.
I'll second.
All right, there's a motion from Drew, his last chance to do that, and a second from Vice Mayor Stiltner. Mayor-elect Stiltner. Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Public participation. And we will start with Joseph Adazio.
Good evening. So there are two parts that I'd like to discuss. I am on the board of the HOA of South Winds. This is a subdivision on the corner of Madeline and Clyde Morris behind the CVS. First thing is real simple. Exiting South Winds Drive onto Madeline at that stop sign. Looking up Madeline, looking east, the trees have kind of started to progress out back towards the road and has cut down your line of sight. So it would be nice to get that pushed back again. You have done that before for us, and it's time to do again. The other thing is to bring up concerns of flooding that residents have brought to the board. We're an older development. We have had a lot of construction around us, so blacktop does not like to soak in water. Some of the residents that have been in the subdivision for years have talked about different types of drainage that was in the subdivision that little by little, as roads have been repaved and done, I guess it's the swales, I believe is the term, have disappeared. The two lakes connecting, it's just getting to be worse and worse. Now, I know in Port Orange, there are plenty of areas, but we are an older subdivision, and it seems that not so much as this current board as it's construed, but over the years, I believe there has been some neglect in keeping up, or I guess that would be the best thing to say. Some residents even brought forth some health concerns with the standing water about mosquitoes and the different things that they could bring, especially living in a subtropic climate that we have in Florida. We do see the news reports of different diseases that mosquitoes can spread. We are an older community. There's a lot of older residents that would be susceptible to those health issues. So we would like for somebody to maybe take a look at that, either through the board or to consider that as you're discussing plans to relieve the flooding issues, and maybe contact our board or our manager to speak with us with our concerns at a later date, or to drive the subdivision with us so we can point out some areas of concern and some drains of concern. Thank you.
Joe, do me a favor. I didn't ask you at the beginning. Can you just say your name and address for the record?
Sure. For the record, my name is Joseph Adazio, 1119 South Winds Drive. I am currently the vice president on the HOA board of South Winds. So I'm both a board member and a resident
There you go.
that has flooding in front of their house too. So thank you.
Don, I'll speak on his behalf for a second.
You'll hold the council comments. You're not going anywhere, are you?
No.
Okay.
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 Lisa Gibson.
I'm Lisa Gibson. I live at 1483 Casey Lane in Willow Run. I'm that corner house that has been totally demolished both times. And I don't know what's going on with the whole thing. Everybody's saying that we're just overbuilt Port Orange. The drainage is not working. I've lived there for 25 years. I never flooded up until Ian. My whole house was flooded, and then again now. In the middle of redoing it. And then today I get this thing, I'm assuming from Port Orange. It's telling me that they're gonna come back and inspect my house. This is 6 weeks later. I don't even know if it's legit. I'm not really sure. It says it's from sdinfo@portorange.org. And like, you just don't know where to turn to, you know? And I said, again, my house is, I have no holidays. This all hits personally, you know? And I'm old. I have gray hair, I'm old, and I just don't want to keep doing this every 2 years. And I just feel like we need some kind of answers, some kind of help. I know, like on Willow Run, they dug out that whole side. Maybe if they dug out the other side. And then I also heard that, like, maybe that hidden lake, if it was cleaned out, that maybe the water can drain that way. I don't know why, but it's like the same corner. It's just the drainage is in front of my house. We used to go out there when we had the 4 hurricanes. My kids would go out, my husband, and we would rake it, and it would go down. It would go down. It would go down. And then last time that you guys told me, 200-year flood. Well, here I am 2 years later, and the same thing happened again. And the water was not going anywhere, and even the sewer was coming up this time. And it's just, we're older. My husband's not healthy, and it's just so hard, and it affects so many people in our lives, our families. I do the holidays, not this year again. You know, it's just hard, and I just want someone to hear our voices because it's so frustrating, and I want to know, I don't want money, I don't want anything. I just want to be promised that this isn't going to happen again. That's all I want. I don't want to relocate. I've been there for 25 years. This is my home and my legacy. And that's it. We want help. That's it.
Thank you. Lisa, if you hang out, we're going to get through all the comments,
Okay.
and then immediately when we get into council comments, I'm going to have the city manager speak about the card, but I want to do that, get everybody's on the record, and we'll hit it all at once. Thank you. And Beth Forbes.
Beth Forbes. I live at 1481 Craig Court. And I spoke November 1st, 2022. Sent my concerns through Click It, Fix It. The city passed me on to the county. The county tells me it was a 500-year storm. And 23 months later, my house floods again. I know of 14 neighbors whose homes flooded. Of the 14, 4 have lived in their homes for 22 to 36 years and never had floods until Ian. Never. And so, using the city manager's words from last month's city council meeting, our storm sewer system is under-engineered. He tells us that the B19 canal is brittle. What is being done? I've sent another Click It, Fix It about these questions that I have. No one acknowledges me or responds to me. What is that? What good is the Click It, Fix It? So, I feel like we're being brushed off. I feel like this isn't important to you folks. And we're residents of the city. We are to be taken care of. We're to be listened and heard and to have answers. I just feel like nobody cares. And if I have to come every month and keep asking the same questions, I'm going to do it because this is ridiculous. To go through a flood is destructive, disruptive, physically taxing. I, like Lisa, I'm older. I live alone. I have to do everything by myself. I don't have children. I have to do it all. I have to clean out my house. I have to make all arrangements to have it put back together. But most of all, it's financially devastating. The property value has gone right down the stormwater system when it works. And I want the city to do something to help us. So, those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've got Christine McKnight.
Good evening, and thank you for this time to speak. My name is Christine McKnight. I live at 1168 Shallows Court in South Winds, and I'm a board member as well. Jim McKnight, who was the city manager of Rockledge, Florida for over 33 years, could not be here this evening. He helped me put this together and is truly experienced in city planning, development, and governing. So at our most recent board meeting, residents attended sharing concerns with regard to stormwater lapping at the front of their houses following Hurricane Milton. Obviously, this is not isolated as it has occurred 3 times in the last 2 years, with one event being non-tropical rains. This time, the streets remain flooded for multiple days. It does appear the problem has worsened since the apartment complex was built to our north, which are the Atlantic Apartments on Reed Canal Road. We're also unclear on the procedure used for the pump located on the north end of the lake on Southampton Drive. For example, when does it come on? The when is important because for some reason it didn't come on days after Milton had passed. We are requesting that Jim McKnight and our board member be afforded an opportunity to meet with city staff, engineering, in order to discuss this recurring problem and as to what solutions may be available to alleviate the magnitude of the problem before it worsens even further. Due to the concerns voiced by our residents, we request that a meeting be set up as soon as possible. Thank you again for your time, and we look forward to this matter being addressed.
Christine, that's the best phone number to reach at you to set that meeting up?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Tarnow? Tarnow?
Tarno, yes. Good
Okay.
evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I live at 791 Sugar Cane Lane, Sugar Forest. Thank you for the time and allowing me to read my thoughts as I put them down at 4 in the morning, which is when my brain seems to click on. My late husband and I have been business owners and residents of Port Orange since 1971, when Dunlawton ended at the railroad tracks, one elementary school and 2 grocery stores. We are original homeowners in Sugar Forest since 1979. My children and grandchildren were raised and still live here, as well as my son and grandson are first responders for our communities. Addressing the elephant in the room, again, we have flooded. I have been neglectful and remiss in not attending and being more attentive to council meetings and zoning changes and notices. Several years ago, Sugar Forest was instrumental in blocking a neighborhood Walmart on the corner of Madeline and Nova. However, we now have extra storage on the southeast corner and have concerns what will be forthcoming on the northeast corner. Extra storage of stormwater has always been a concern since construction, as we watch truckload after truckload of fill dirt being brought in to raise the level of the property. Their retention pond does not perk, and the water just sits there even in a normal rainstorm. A new neighborhood is being built surrounding Sugar Mill Elementary, and coupled with what might be forthcoming, it doesn't take an engineer to understand that Sugar Forest now sits in a pit where the water has no place to go. Even without an understanding of infrastructure and stormwater management, it is apparent to anyone that something has to be done to alleviate the issue. We are awaiting construction of the stormwater pond, which was designated by a colorful sign across from the main entrance to Sugar Forest. It's been 2 years. We all now have become experts in reacting to flooded homes. Even if a homeowner does have flood insurance, it requires expendable funds to restore our homes, as it often takes 3 months for flood funds to be released. In addition, how long before NFIP designates our homes as uninsurable without extreme measures such as raising our homes? That is not possible for average income, middle-class homeowners without grants, funds, and personal substantial monies to accomplish such a monumental task. Does the city want to buy out Sugar Forest homeowners at pre-hurricane values and turn Sugar Forest into a retention lake? Bring your offers. I venture to guess that the city manager, Mr. Clark, along with engineers, would have some insightful recommendations as to what needs to happen. Maybe even a tax increase, even though that's not what we want. We have all heard there are not enough outflows to accommodate flooding issues and have been told it involves red tape.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Thank you. Red tape, cooperation, and funding from various municipalities, county, and even the state, which takes time. Also heard pumps in Port Orange were not operational. We don't have time to wait. It's time to go Donald Trump and make some things happen. I recall when Steak and Shake wasn't permitted in Port Orange because of neon signs. Look where we are now. You have been elected to represent and be good stewards of our tax dollars, and it is past time to search your hearts and minds, and we implore you each to do so and protect your citizens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Hellman?
Chuck Hellman, 823 Sugar House Boulevard, Port Orange, and I was here 2 weeks ago to tell you about the hoarder, that he was back, and he's in full force. I have photos I want you all to look at that I took. And I took these on Sunday. Every day he comes by with at least 1 truckload, sometimes 2, and just drops stuff off, and then he leaves. So So,
Start at that end,
Yeah.
we'll circulate it down.
so right now, I live right across the street from Port Orange's newest landfill. He's out of control. I've talked to Matt on the phone, and Matt, thank you for getting back to me and telling me that the process that you gotta go through to get rid of somebody, but he's no longer homesteaded, he doesn't pay taxes, he doesn't pay fines. Code enforcement comes by, writes him up, but why? I mean, I'm like, at the point, do we even need code enforcement? If the people don't have to do what they tell, you know, what are they gonna do, just write you up for parking on the grass now? It's unbelievable what they're doing. Me and my neighbor talked to other homeowners that his house were connected to, and we were able to rope it off and put no trespassing signs to try to keep him contained in one area, because if you don't get him contained, he's going to burn down houses like he did before. We have to, there's got to be, you know, I don't know who did the process, you know, that you got to go through this. It's 2024. 1950, whenever they did these new processes, let's speed something up. Every day he's out there bringing more and more stuff over. I mean, if you lived in my house and you looked at this every day, would it get moved faster? I mean, I'm like, it's not going nowhere. He's not going nowhere, and my hair is only getting grayer. I don't know. You know, you told me before to be vigilant. Call the police department. Well, I called the non-emergency number, but by the time they get there, he's already gone. It's like a dump and run. There's gotta be a loophole somewhere to keep him from. How come you can dump something in your front yard if you don't have a house? There's no dwelling whatsoever. I know before they told me whatever's in the backyard's in the backyard. There is no backyard. It's all backyard. And I'm showing you them pictures, but by the time, I guarantee you by Christmas time, it's gonna be all the way to that fence. Because every day he brings up 1 or 2 truckloads a day of a pickup truck. So please.
Thank you, Chuck.
something.
Thanks, Chuck.
Matt, hold on to those pictures because I'm going to be asking you a question about those specifically. Carl Mandel?
Carl Mandel, 743 Laredo Drive. I'd like to make a few points regarding 717 Dove Avenue in Laurelwood Estates during this past year. Homeless people are hanging out by our development signage, stealing power from our electrical receptacles, charging their phones, and these have been repaired several times. They cut off the tags where the locks we put over the receptacles. They break them off, and we replace that at expense to our subdivision. Upon questioning a few of these individuals that I saw when I got told that somebody was stealing the power, the gentleman says, "Well, I've never been homeless in my life." And so I said, "Well, can I ask you not to take the power?" So he said, "Okay, I'm sorry." And then subsequently, this gentleman and other folks that we see, they're seen going down the street towards 717 Dove Avenue. So it's obvious, perhaps, as to what they're doing. Recently, neighbors were calling about individuals asking these neighbors to fill their empty gallon jugs. So the neighbors, being nice, they said, "Okay." Well, the concern is now with the neighbors that maybe they'll take the water from a resident's home where they're either snowbirds or they're not there, they're on vacation, out of the hose bibs there and use the water there, because obviously there's no water at this location. Having campfires in the backyard with no water source to put out a fire if it gets out of control. This is most concerning. Residents are now becoming very scared about these events, which definitely should not be occurring in a 55 and older subdivision. Conditions are extremely unsanitary. Windows are knocked out. Residents are concerned about what these people are using for bathroom facilities. We have been extremely patient over the past years, but we cannot continue to have our residents be afraid when in their home and not being able to live a normal lifestyle of a retired person in a quiet neighborhood as it was a few years ago. We ask the city to please continue on a more aggressive position in resolving this extremely unsafe situation in our neighborhood. Thank you for your time to allow us to express our concerns.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks,
Do
Carl.
me a favor, Wayne. Chief Marino is here. Can you ask the chief, have you guys conversed?
We spoke, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. And Kelly McCormick? I'm sorry, is that Kate? There you go.
Kelty McCormick, 961A South Lakewood Terrace, Port Orange, 32127. On December 3rd, 2024, Lance Green is due to be sworn onto the Port Orange City Council. It was reported by the media on September 5th that Mr. Green was involved in a car accident while driving drunk. When I heard about the car accident, I was told by Port Orange residents that he was a successful local businessman and had served honorably for 14 years as a planning board member. Sounds like he's created some of tonight's topics. It was also reported by the media that when a policeman who reported to the scene arrived, he was asked by Mrs. Green if he knew who the Greens were. I ask you, does Mr. Green know who the people in this room are? We're Port Orange voters mostly. By my words and by my actions, I am known to the community around me, just as Mr. Green is. By my word and by my actions, I am known to myself, unless, of course, I've been kidding myself. And if I am slow to recognize my shortcomings, my family and friends and the community let me know I have overestimated myself. As a Port Orange voter, I ask all of you in this room the following questions. Do you trust our local police and city officials and employees? I ask myself, how much emotional burden do I want to place on the shoulders of a new councilman who is obviously struggling with his current burden? And how much time are his personal problems likely to take away from our city's issues? I hope Mr. Green will go home and reflect on the events since his election and how his behavior affects Port Orange. I hope he will consider sparing Port Orange and himself further embarrassment. I hope he will reflect on how best to spare himself and the residents of our community of the lingering fear of repeat episodes of his personal problems. I am a voter calling for Mr. Green's resignation before he takes an oath. I believe that would reassure the community that the City Council that the City Council's word and actions merit our trust and respect.
Thank you. Thank you. Amanda, do I have any others? One more. And Eric Gregory.
Good evening. My name is Eric Gregory, and I live at 223 Peppermint Way. I've been a Port Orange resident for 48 years. I am part of the Environmental Advisory Board here in the city of Port Orange. I've also been in the dewatering and the pump industry for over 30 years. What I've done since I seen this evening that on the agenda, we're going to be speaking again about the advisory board that was presented by Mr. Grubbs. In the past 24 hours, we were able to solicit almost a little over 70 signatures of Port Orange residents that signed this, and this is something that they want. And what I've done with this petition is, what we've asked for is, we the undersigned respectfully petition for the establishment of a Stormwater Advisory Board committee within our community based on the compelling presentation delivered by Tracy Grubbs on November 6th. The presentation highlighted the urgent need to comprehensive planning and management of stormwater systems to mitigate flooding, protecting natural resources, and enhance sustainability. And we understand there is a stormwater plan being done, and it's 80% in completion. But stormwater management is critical, as demonstrated in the presentation. Effective stormwater management is a crucial aspect of maintaining the health and safety of our communities. Rising stormwater challenges due to increased urbanization, unpredictable weather patterns, demand coordinating planning and action. Community engagement is essential. A dedicated advisory committee composed of local experts, stakeholders, and residents would provide the necessary insight and collaboration to ensure the stormwater management practices reflect the needs and concerns of the community. Long-term sustainability. The implementation of green infrastructure, improved drainage systems, and public education on stormwater best practices are essential to reduce long-term risk associated with floods and erosion, safeguarding water quality and promoting environmental sustainability. We propose that the Stormwater Advisory Committee be formed with the following objectives: assessing current stormwater infrastructure, review and recommend improvements to existing stormwater management systems. There's some small things that can be done in this community. I've driven the community. I know how water moves. I've been moving water. I work for a company that we drained New Orleans during the floods of Hurricane Katrina. Okay, that's what we do for a living. You know, there's a lot of things that can be done in the short term until your committee can get the plan and the funding can be provided. And that's what the advisory board is, what we're looking to accomplish.
Thanks, sir.
So,
Thank you.
we appreciate you guys taking a little more, taking this into consideration when this is presented later on.
Amanda, that's all of them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We get into council comments. Wayne, what I'm going to do is, format-wise, instead of going from person to person to person on all the topics, let's all of us hit our questions on stormwater and the like first. First thing, we've already highlighted it, and do me a favor, just highlight where we are on the stormwater master plan since we started working on it, and when we expect it complete, and what the goal of that plan is, so that everybody can hear what we've been working on.
Stormwater master plan started last October, so it's been a little over a year that we've been working on it. Kimley Horn was hired. They have modeled the entire city, identified areas of interest where we have seen flooding problems, and then as they've gone in and looked at this, they have basically, you take different rainfall events and model solutions. So they're able to look at in a certain area, what happens if you put in a pond? What if you add pipe depth size? You make the pipes bigger. Various different solutions to stormwater. So they are at the point where, percentage-wise, we're in the 80-90% done. The model has been done, the solutions have been out there and tested, and they're in the process of finalizing what will work in these areas so that we will be able to rank and prioritize the stormwater solutions for these areas. So we expect that process to take through the holidays, and then we probably bring this to council most likely as a standalone item, either February or a March meeting, just to make sure we have time to get everything set up and have the Kimley Horn people come and present that. The other cities around us that are working on their master plans, we have been talking to the management staff in South Daytona, the cities where we have some areas where we might touch each other's. drainage, and so we're going to go talk to them as well. They're working on stormwater master plans. We want to make sure that we're complementary in our solutions and that we're not doing things that create, or they're not doing things that create impacts to us. So I think the stormwater doesn't pay attention to government boundaries.
No.
So trying to make sure that we're working together across the boundaries there. So the plan will help identify solutions that will work, rank them, give us an idea. It also prioritizes some of the maintenance. It's critical. So we've talked about this in the past. One of our building boom eras in the 80s and 90s, we used corrugated metal pipe for a lot of the stormwater, where there's pipe systems, and that does not do well. So we've got several miles of pipe to replace, and so they've looked at the areas where that pipe would be the most important to upgrade first because of the critical nature, whether it affects a road or it's a major outfall to something. So you should be seeing solutions coming from that, and there are going to be some that are expensive and longer term, and some that are more moderate priced and can be done in shorter durations.
Okay. With that, it goes on to the point of a lot of impacts. We had 2 rainstorms, of the like of which, not even close, we have to go back 100 years in history to see, and now we've had 2 of them back to back. You know, and I never thought I'd say that something could blow away Francis, but these certainly did. But we also see the regional impact things have, like the Nova Canal. And I want to let you know, and the council know, I've had conversations with Mayor Hall in South Daytona, and I know staff has taken it another step further. Until we have more outfalls on the Nova Canal, not only are we taking on our water, we're taking on everyone else's coming our way, and our water is nowhere to go. And that's a problem. So if you guys have any ability to continue with the conversations about how to address making Reed Canal flow better so that it doesn't back up with storm surge once the storm surge hits, which is the same problem we have at the end of the system.
And I think you brought that up, that the exit for all that water on the south end comes out into the Nova Canal, empties into the bay close to where Cambridge Canal comes out. And it is so tidally influenced. Just this weekend where we had a king tide, so it hasn't rained substantially since the storm. And we had perfect weather this weekend, but with a strong king tide. And if you go up Spruce Creek Road, miles away from where that outfall is, water was overfilled in the banks and into those lower lying properties on the east side of the canal, going up towards almost all the way to Dunlawton. You see saltwater intrusion. That is a powerful storm or force system. That's as good weather, no rain, and we have that impact up the creek. So you can see the impact of trying to get that water out of it going forward. And we've also talked about the storm. We have that graphic. I don't have it here tonight unless it's there to pop up, but we went back 100 years looking at rainfall events, and we had not had anything like the 23 inches in Ian and the 15 plus inches that we got in Milton going back 100 years. So it's not something that we, she can put it up on the screen, but it's not something that we have seen recently. So our system, clearly the older parts of the city were not built to handle that level of rainfall. But we did, in looking at the west side of the city, so we've analyzed where the areas that flooded, and you're looking at, of the 28,000 or so structures in the city, about 1,000 flooded, had flood impacts, and virtually none on the west side where new stormwater regulations are in place. Those storms, and it's a gross oversimplification. Stormwater is a complicated mathematical formula, but basically the current code is to hold about 11 inches of water rain in 24 hours. So at about the 9-inch point in your pond, you get to the outfalls where water starts coming out of it, but it'll still hold a couple inches more. So if you look at Cypress Head, Water's Edge, and Woodhaven, and those areas out on the west side that were built fully to those standards, those systems didn't hold 23 inches of water or 15 inches of water. They did overflow, but they stayed out of the houses. It flooded the streets. So the system out there, under stormwater regulations that have been in place for about the last 25 years or so, at least kept the water out of the houses, which is the priority of the stormwater master plan. Number one, get the water out of the buildings. The infrastructure comes after you've got it out of people's houses. So it gives us an idea of what target to shoot for when you're designing a project. You got to pick something. Do you want to build a city that is flood-proof under a 23-inch hurricane, under 9 inches in 1 hour like we got from Milton? You know, what are those kind of storms you're trying to do? The challenge for us is going to be coming back to the east side, where the largest amount of flooding occurred in the Nova Basin, in the area between the north side of the city, right along Nova Road, coming down to Canal View and picking up to Dunlawton. So that is, if you look at the maps where we had the largest number of flood-impacted homes, it's concentrated in that area because the water cannot get into the Nova Canal because it's so full, and that canal can't drain out. So those are going to be the more challenging solutions to come up with.
You got 7 proposed projects. I know that I've got a feeling that the master plan will back up those 7. I think, 5 of them are related in some way, directly or indirectly, to things going on around the Nova Canal Basin.
And for the Southwinds people, there's a project in there too, because Southwinds is one of our few closed basins.
System, yeah.
And so it doesn't have an outfall, but years ago, the city bought a piece of land closer to Nova, and we've got one of the projects is to pump out of Southwinds around to that property. Right now, we don't have anywhere to put it, so the schools have been nice enough. They have a dry pond at Atlantic High School, and they've let us use it a little bit to lower the water in Southwinds, but the project that's in the Stormwater Master Plan is a permanent fix to pull the water out of there so that it doesn't stay there like it does now. So there are projects of that magnitude. The pond that was mentioned at Pepper Hill was originally just to be a pond, but when we started trying to model it, it doesn't help as much. But if you put a pump in it and pump the water east instead of west into the Nova Canal, you begin to start helping the houses in Sugar Forest by pulling the water away from them and going the other direction. So there's scale projects like that are in this plan that are going to help in some. I mean, there's big ones. Building another Reed Canal type pump that's $30 million is a much bigger help, but that forces that water out and builds it so that you can beat the tide by pushing the pipe deep out into the river so that the tide doesn't stop it. That's a lot harder, but there's also, like I said, moderate scale projects in there, like we talked about for Southwinds and the Sugar Forest area.
Okay. Why don't we go round robin? Reed, why don't you start?
Can you, Wayne, we talked about this at lunch actually, and Lisa asked the question about the door hanger with the FEMA's 50% rule. Can you just kind of explain a little bit about why we have to do that? Because you explained it to me pretty well over lunch today.
So FEMA, and we got staff here to help if you're in the special flood hazard area, which is the fancy way they now use, people used to always refer to them just living in flood zones. So if you live in a flood zone and a couple of things happen, if we've had 2 flood events in less than 10 years, this rule comes in. We also have requirements if you've had damage over 50% of the value of your house, not your land, but the house itself, then you are required. What FEMA's attempting to do is not to have it be repaired and then repaired and then repaired, but to have it elevated or rebuilt in some way so that it is permanently above the flood area. So most of the area, and again, I'm generalizing the overall, but a lot of the city that is in the areas that floods, the houses are built at about 5 feet above sea level, and the base flood elevation is about 7. So they're all about 2 feet lower, and that's where you see all that flooding getting into these houses from that. And so the requirement for us is that if this occurs, we are required to go and inspect all the houses in the flood hazard area that we believe may have been substantially damaged, which is that 50% rule, to verify if they are, and not authorize permits except to make the house livable until they're in some kind of program to permanently get it in compliance with the current base flood elevation.
And
so if you don't do that, then FEMA comes after you. So we've had conversations with the attorney working on.
Who does FEMA come after?
They will come to the city, and our participation. So step 1, we're in a program called CRS, a community rating system. It allows, we do certain things to reduce the potential for flooding. It lowers flood insurance rates for people who are in these flood zones. So that's one thing, it saves some money. But the other part of it is we're in the National Flood Insurance Program, and that's the program where we get our, we spend about $4 or $5 million removing debris every time there's a hurricane, and then FEMA gives us almost all that money back. So in repairs, so that we have the docks that get torn up, we get repairs. That's all part of being in the flood insurance program. Being able to get flood insurance is part of it. FEMA has the ability to suspend you from being in the flood insurance program if you fail to comply with their 50% rules for this. And we had conversations, because I fully understand the last thing you want is somebody telling you kind of walk around your house and see how badly messed up it is after it's over with, and then help out with, okay, these are the repairs you can make, but you've got to find some way to get your house 2 feet higher in order for the long run. So we understand that, but I think the federal law tells us that is what we have to do. So we're doing it. Right now, we're trying to do it in phases. We're trying to do it in phases where right now, the door hangers that went out today, there's about 115 people that have already applied for FEMA assistance. And so the door hangers went to the people that we have a list that they have told FEMA had damage. So that's why we saw that they were potentially substantially damaged. So we're not to the point of going to every single house that we thought. We've done the mobile homes first, which I think the mayor's talked about a couple times to the press. And this next stage that started this week is to start the single family homes in the areas where they have applied for FEMA assistance.
What else you got?
I was just going to make a point. When it comes to these flood zones, they're not necessarily based by neighborhood or by street. For example, I flooded during Milton, I flooded during Ian. I hate water as much as everyone else in this room. And I want to tell you, like, I did not get a door hanger even though I've applied for FEMA. But the reason being is that I'm not in a flood zone, but you go 3 doors down from me across the street and my neighbor is. So they're very specifically targeted, and it is federal rules that the city is complying with. It's not the city doing something on its own. It's doing what we have to do to try to protect all of our residents through those programs. So, and Wayne kind of explained that.
But also to counter that, FEMA has assistance programs.
They do.
To help with that mitigation.
Yep.
They do, and I mean, I could see the residents' frustration. One, that they're a little slow getting there, and there is money that's required. So if you want to elevate your house or tear it down and rebuild it, they pay a percentage, but you've still got a decent amount of it that you have to match. So, as a couple of them have said, that you've got to have the ability to match that. And then a lot of them, elevating it 2 feet. Some people will, but there's others that have said, why let's just go higher up, and then you can park underneath it. Or so some of them have gone to elevate even higher than that. You've got to go at least to what the base flood elevation is in your flood zone. Is the minimum, but we have a 1 foot freeboard requirement, so you got to go 1 foot over base flood elevation minimum. But a lot of them have been asking about going higher up so that they can use to park underneath the house.
Okay. Reed, what else you got?
Just also on the conversation of financial assistance, I just want to make sure I put this out. I sometimes assume people know these things and sometimes they don't. The SBA also has some resources available right now, which I actually applied for. And some people think you need to own a business for that. You do not. You can apply just as a homeowner. And the email today, don't exactly quote me on this, but basically what my mortgage company informed me is 0 interest for the first 12 months. If you borrow the money, like to make repairs, and then you pay it back after you get your insurance check, because that was a comment that a citizen had before. But loans up to $500,000 is what was said in that email to me in order to improve or repair your home. So I would highly recommend, if you're looking for financial assistance, not only to look at FEMA, but look at that SBA.gov, especially for short-term capital that you could try to pay back once your insurance comes through. So,
okay. Tracy, let her rip.
Well, I'm gonna hold off on the advisory board until we get
Right.
to that.
We get on. That's an agenda item. So sure.
One of the things that me and Wayne were talking about, and Robin too, on Monday was the possibilities. FEMA's coming in and they're buying land and homes from people, and this was a brainstorming of possibilities. We have Sugar Forest that has a lot of common area land that with their HOA, when they debunked it, that common area land is still there. And the question is do we have any of the homes that were going back to FEMA? Is there a possibility of taking that common area land that you guys have in Sugar Forest and using those homes that are going back to FEMA and having the city tie that together to expand the ponds, the lakes, things of that nature as a possibility to help with the drainage issue? It's just a brainstorming at the table Monday, and we know there's going to be properties coming up and y'all have properties that are common areas that used to have swells that have been filled in. So it's a potential as a way of fixing the problem. So that was something that was just put on the table that we need to make sure everybody knows that we've been talking about different ideals outside the box.
Scott?
So I guess maybe just to start to reiterate some of the comments, and I tried to write some names down. I apologize. I guess I don't write as fast as I'd like to. So, but Kathleen, I believe it is, in Sugar Forest, I appreciate your comments so much and your longevity in the community. I too have lived here my entire life, and my parents as well. One of the comments that I keep hearing a lot, and somebody made that comment tonight, although I forget who it was. They said, you know, I've lived here 15 years or 20 years or 25 or 30, and my house has never flooded. We understand that, but you've never lived here and seen that much rainfall in that period of time. And so over the course of the history, way before my time up here, anybody in this entire city staff, there were periods of time where over half of the community was developed and built, and there was no mandate for stormwater infrastructure. None. Zero. In some of these older communities, when you look at them, you know, a lot of times when you guys come up here, by the way, and you say your address, I'm a very visual person. So, you know, I tend to pull that up in Google Earth because I want to be able to see what are we talking about, whether it's South Winds or Sugar Forest or those kind of things. So if you look at those areas, you will see areas mostly east of Nova Road, but not all of them, but mostly east of Nova Road, and there are massive amounts of homes, and there is no retention. There's no ponds, no lakes, no really substantial stormwater drainage and all that kind of stuff. Well, that began to change in 1990, and in 1990, the laws were changed, and there was implementation of some stormwater regulations. I have to think that in 1990, in the 80s and 90s, when that was going on, that they looked at historical rainfall over a certain period of time. The rainfall type stuff that we have seen in the last couple of years hasn't occurred for 100 years. 1924 was the last time that much rainfall occurred. And by the way, somebody mentioned it tonight, and I'm going to say it, maybe if I can convince myself to stop saying it. I hate the phrase 100-year storm, 500-year storm, or anything like that.
Same.
But what that represents is when somebody says 100-year storm, it means that there is a 1% chance every year of a storm of that magnitude. Same thing with a 500-year storm. It's 1/5 of 1% of a chance of a storm in that kind of magnitude. So that's what that really means. I think it's a layman's term maybe that was utilized and started many, many years ago to try to cast some perspective as to what the likelihood of a storm of that magnitude could be. And they would say, oh, you're likely to see that once in 100 years, once in 500 years, once in 1,000 years. Anyhow, so that's what that means. But kind of going back to what I was saying is after 1990, there was implementation of some stormwater standards all across the state, not Port Orange, by the way, just all over across the state of Florida. And so those standards were improvements over not having anything at all, but they were relatively minimal as we look at them and evaluate them today, right? I mean, if you look in the city of Port Orange, by the way, I live in Water's Edge, so just for perspective, okay? If you look in Water's Edge, there's about 1,200 homes in my community. There's over 20 retention ponds. 20. Not because the land developer or the homeowners or whoever thought, well, this would be great, we're gonna build all these extra ponds out here and it's aesthetically pleasing. They did it because they were trying to meet all of the new standards and then some, and that neighborhood retained pretty much 20 inches of water. It retains it. Now, as that land, before it was developed, it did not retain that much water. It retains more today than it did before it was ever developed. It was sod farms, Kathleen probably knows. It was sod farms, and the land only retains so much water, and the land slopes to the east. And after so much rain, whether that's an inch or 2 or 3 inches of water, it's running. It's at the mercy of the topography and the slope of the land, and it's going somewhere, right? So as time has progressed, more and more retention and different codes and changes. I think the last 2 years is going to create a totally different perspective and look on what future codes. The challenge that is before this elected body is what do we do about the neighborhoods that are already established? Because these neighborhoods don't have space for us to go in, or the HOAs go in and start acquiring 4, 5, 6 acres within that neighborhood to build these retention networks. So it's going to have to be done with pumping type stuff and different technologies to prohibit this type of thing. And the city manager mentioned it. One of the challenges that the council has is we have to be able to give our staff and our engineers a number, right? So all these numbers have floated around for years, like, well, the city's designed to retain 8 inches of water, 9 inches or 10 or what have you. In 2004, we had those 3 hurricanes. We had a ton of rain. We saw massive major flooding that occurred down in the Cambridge area, and the city responded. And homes were bought up with FEMA dollars, and a project was put into place to basically handle 10 to 11 inches of rain. And it has worked as it was designed. It has worked. It does not work for these storms, but it has worked as it's designed, and we are in the process of re-engineering it to even improve that. So when people say, well, I've lived here 25 years and my home never flooded, we get that, and we sympathize with all of this tremendously. By the way, it weighs heavy on our hearts. We think about this all the time. Tracy was talking about a minute ago, different ideas, and we all have them. Somebody mentioned, I think it might have been Kathleen again, the horse farm. I would have loved nothing better to see somebody buy that horse farm. Yeah. But even that property was a horse farm when Ian hit, and Sugar Forest still had all those flooding issues. And I've stood out there in that area and watched that water flow out of the Nova Canal, and when it comes out of the Nova Canal banks, it goes east. And Sugar Forest is right in that path. And so all that water coming out of Ormond, Daytona, South Daytona, it's coming down that network, and it's too much. And those outfalls north of Port Orange are badly needed. But you mentioned that property at Madeline and Nova. Well, the city manager and I recently had this conversation. I've also talked to like the mayor has, to the mayor of South Daytona, to look at acquiring that property and see how we can tie that into our stormwater master plan and what benefit there could be if we could acquire that land, because it's a huge piece of land. So we constantly are talking about these ideas and looking at the city, and we drive the city and we talk to different residents, and we hear you. Somebody said tonight, are you hearing us? Yes, we are hearing you. We hear every one of you, and we're constantly looking at this and trying to figure out what is the next best, biggest bang for the buck of the taxpayer dollars to make the biggest impacts. So what did we do? Well, after Ian, the elected officials gave direction to the city manager, and we said, we need an updated master stormwater plan, and it needs to be better than whatever we've had in the past, because something is changing and we want to work towards that. So we authorized the expenditure of nearly $500,000 to hire a civil engineering firm, top notch, to study every aspect of the stormwater systems in the city of Port Orange, and to not only bring us ideas in places in what they truly identify, because by the way, and I digress a minute, I apologize if I sound confusing, but it's not as simple as just saying, well, we just need to pump water out of this neighborhood. You have to have somewhere to pump it to without impacting something farther downstream. You also have other agencies involved, federal agencies, state agencies, DEP, St. John's Water Management District, state of Florida. Sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's a neighboring city. All these aspects have to be looked at collectively so that you can come up with plans that are going to be effective without creating a bigger or another problem somewhere else. So what we did was we budgeted and we bid out and contracted, and we hired Kimley Horn. I think our expenditure is about $480,000-ish. They have been working on a master stormwater plan for the city of Port Orange. Part of that is to take 7 projects that mostly our staff has already identified and put together as areas, and model those projects into that plan to say, will these work? Which ones should be prioritized the highest? Which ones will give us the biggest bang for the buck, right? Your buck, by the way. Part of that plan, and they're about 90% in completion. So like the city manager said, very shortly here, we should be having a public meetings. I encourage all of you guys to come, listen to these engineers, look at these plans, be part of that discussion, help us evaluate that, give us feedback and your information. But that will be coming very, very soon. We will be in Tallahassee in January and February, probably first part of March, and we'll be fighting for state dollars. We won't be the only city up there. There will be a lot of cities across the state of Florida, as you guys have seen on the news. Flooding isn't just happening in Port Orange, it's happening in coastal communities all over the state. But we will be up there fighting as hard as we can for state dollars. Part of having that stormwater master plan gives us an edge, because a lot of cities, and I won't name them, some of them haven't done that yet, and some of them are just now starting because of this storm, whereas we started over a year ago. So we will have this, and that will help us to go forward to say, if you help us, if you give Port Orange some of these state dollars or pass down federal dollars, we have already hired an engineering firm. We have modeled these projects. They have been designed to a certain level to where they would consider them shovel ready, and we just need funding help. Now, part of that will be matching funding. We will have to match that with some local dollars, and we will be doing that. But that's coming, and we are pushing that as fast as we possibly can. I know everybody gets frustrated with the speed of government. You don't get any more frustrated than we all do up here. We get it. Like the gentleman spoke tonight about an unrelated issue, that's another example. We still have legal constraints from other agencies more powerful in the law than us that we have to work within. We cannot go outside of those things. If we do, sometimes we can hurt the community, which hurts you guys. We don't want to do that. So we will do this as fast as possible. I don't want any red tape in the way. I want to be able to put our foot on the gas pedal as soon as we've got this stormwater master plan, pursue aggressively every dollar we can, and get these projects going. And we've already started to some of these projects. So we will do that. We hear you. Please know that. You are more than welcome. If you have questions, our community development staff is incredibly knowledgeable. You can reach out to us. If it's not something we know the answer to, we will get you whatever that answer may be. But I want to be clear on something. We, this council, or any council that sits up here in future years, cannot guarantee homes in Florida are never going to flood again. As much as we would want to say that, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to tell you right now, you'll never hear that cross my lips. I am never going to promise you that there's not a bigger storm or a bigger problem that's going to happen. I'm not that person. So I need you to know, for those of you that have been through a bad flooding experience, some of this stuff's going to take some time. It's not going to happen in the next few months. Some of these projects are going to take years. Some of them require a ton of funding. So we're at the mercy of that, and we cannot promise you a home won't flood again in the city of Port Orange, but we will work towards improving significantly the infrastructure of our city. And we will continue to fight and push for other cities north of us. Part of our role is actually, believe it or not, going to be supporting South Daytona, Daytona, Ormond, and those counties north of us. Because if they can help keep some of their water north of us and put that into outfalls before it gets to Port Orange, that is a win for us. That is a win. And that's a hard thing to grasp and understand, because we want to do everything here ourselves. But some of that support north of us it's very, very valuable to all of us. So,
Where I've been concentrating a lot of my time.
Yeah, and I agree, Scott. The other cities, like the Tallahassee thing, I hope, I'm not going to go around saying that this is my last meeting. I've been doing this 12 years. And so, won't be here for the long-term stuff, but you're right. We've been up to Tallahassee 6 or 7 times at least, if not more. And we've usually been very successful. We've been shut out a little bit, but if you don't make the ask, it's never going to happen. So I hope that all those other cities, to the north of us, are up there fighting with us or with you guys and the sitting council come March, I think, is the session, right? And I know we'll send Wayne up and the engineers and try to do that stuff early on. But yeah, it won't ever be something that I'm a part of or I get to vote on, because my service to the city ends tonight. And so I'm just gonna, short term, if we could get Sugar Force some help with the hoarding, that's about the only thing I really have a say in, because like I said, I won't be here. But if we can, and I know we are, but if we can just get them all the help they need to, address this hoarding situation short term, and longer term out, just address the infrastructure and do everything we can, financially and everything to address the flooding, that's going to help the most. But we can't do it without the other cities, and we definitely can't do it without some state monies. We typically have always been able to match and do our share, but short of massive tax increases, some of these projects, what do we have, 70 million or so in identified projects already? And that's, we're just scratching the surface there. So a long-term commitment, and like I said, I hope that everybody could rally and everybody's successful in Tallahassee so that we could expedite all the stuff that needs to be done. But yeah, I really can't address anything else flooding-wise because you guys have all covered
Let's
it.
go ahead and go back this way.
Sure.
And we'll start with you. What else have you got for the evening?
Nothing for tonight, sir. The concerns that the people were talking about are being addressed and going to be looked into, so let's just keep working towards the goal of infrastructure improvements to help them.
Scott, on this or anything else you have?
Yeah, just a quick comment for Chuck. And I know it's not going to happen, but this is an example of where if an HOA had stayed intact, that would have been another avenue. I will tell you that HOAs, believe it or not, sometimes they have more authority because they pursue the courts in a different direction, and the courts will put liens on those properties, and after so much, they will take those properties. They did it in my neighborhood down the street from me. That's how it works. So, like I said 2 weeks ago, I know you're frustrated. You gotta stay the course with us. We're gonna stay the course.
Unfortunately, that's not an option here.
So we're gonna stay the course. We will, every legal aspect we have, we will pursue it. As you know, private property owners have incredible rights, even when they're not always in the right, and it's an ugly thing. So anyhow, a couple of good notes, if we can segue to that. I just want to remind everybody that the City Parks and Rec Department has some great holiday events coming up. We got the Christmas in the Park with the tree lighting and concert and all that great stuff. It's a great event every year. It just gets better and better. That is Saturday night, December the 7th at 5:30. And then the following day on Sunday will be the city's Christmas parade. It's December 8th, and that starts at about 2, although I believe they're going to close the roads 1:30ish, something like that. They close them a little early.
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock? Yeah, okay. So
lunchtime-ish.
be mindful of that. Also, last week we had a great presentation from our police department, Cops for Kids. That program is still in full swing. Anybody that has an interest in participating in that, please get with our police department or look up on our city social media pages. And then lastly, because it's the closest one, the Volusia Thanksgiving Basket Brigade, their final acceptance of baskets and boxes and donations for that is this Friday. And they're still looking for some drivers that want to help deliver those. They are shooting for 4,500 Christmas baskets to go out across Volusia County to families who need a little help for Thanksgiving. It's an incredible organization. It too grows every single year, and there's a huge demand for that. So that's all I got.
Okay, going back this way. Tracy, what else you got?
Just a couple things. If you haven't seen Memorial Park, October 28th, it started demolition, finally, tearing down all the boardwalk, and the opening day is estimated to be June 1st, so that should be in full swing. It's going back to the exact blueprints of what the docks were down there, so hopefully we'll have that. And again, we're talking about FEMA dollars, how long it takes to get FEMA dollars and everything. This park was closed because of Ian for 2 years. So 2.5 years later, we're finally getting the dock system back in it. So this is why we're talking about government moving slowly, and I know it drives all of us completely nuts.
Most of us are ready, fire, aim kind of people.
I just insane. Social media, I did want to point out one thing that got blowed out the other day was Tiki Docks. November 25th, Monday, is supposed to open. So those that know where that is.
6 days, right on the river.
We're coming down to the river. Tiki Docks is supposed to open on November 25th. And then I want to reach out to the police department on Officer McBride. And her canine buddy took first place in top dog category And what is amazing about this, she took first place last time, so this is the second time in a row. So way to go for police department. So that's great news. It's good to see. Thank you.
Reed, what else you got?
Nothing further. I think it's been covered by everybody up here.
Okay.
Mayor, what do you have?
Thank you. Well, I have, you guys have
Scott's
beat most
practicing.
everything into the ground. Matt, one thing I would ask is, can the attorney's office take a look at what we did with that hoarder property back, I think it was 2012, when we deemed it a health and safety. I know that there is some latitude about what the definition of that is or isn't. Mine eyes say that it is. Please take a look and see what we can do under that, and maybe we can do something similar, okay? With that, we're going to take a short recess for 8 minutes, and then we will be back. Set timer. And we're back, starting with item 18, capital financing discussion. Wayne, who do we have presenting?
Toby, you want to come up?
I've heard of that guy.
Mayor, good to see you. Toby Wagner with Southeastern Investment Securities out of Orlando, and I'm joined tonight with Joel Tyndall, who's with Hilltop Securities, which has been the underwriter for the city. Whenever we do long-term bonds, they don't necessarily get involved with bank loans and other short-term financing.
Toby, pull that microphone a little closer if you don't mind.
Glad to
Gotta
do
get a
that.
taller mic.
Is that better?
I tell you. Good.
Mayor, I'm a little bit underdressed tonight at the suggestion, just a general suggestion from Mayor-elect. Last time we were here, suggested that I do away with the tie, so.
Perfect. You did well.
Thank you. This presentation tonight is information only, no actions required. It's going to be very similar to what we did back in 2022. And I think Councilman Grubbs is probably the only one that didn't attend that session. And what we're going to talk about tonight is just very high level in terms of you've got some capital projects coming up, and how do you want to address that financing wise. We're not going to make any recommendations or any decisions tonight. We'll come back. Unfortunately, you'll have to see us again in a couple of months, probably in February, with a more detailed financing plan as to different options in terms of financing a couple things, such as the referendum question that was passed on the capital improvements for your recreation areas. So with that, let me get into this. Again, this follows the same format we had a couple years ago. In terms of the materials we review your debt policy, outstanding debt, future capital needs, and we'll talk about current market conditions and then where we go from here. So we get staff input. Existing debt management policy we've looked at. We also participated in that. That was updated back in I think it was November of 2022, and we made some suggestions there. We look at all the public offering documents, all the financials that you have on file, and we've been representing the city for quite a while, so we've got a good base of knowledge. The existing debt management policy, we'll come back to that when we come back in a couple months and talk about different ways to finance different types of projects. Pay-go versus borrowing, or pay-as-you-use, as borrowing is another term for that. And so you've got various ways of borrowing. You can do direct debt, revenue debt, conduit financing. Conduit financing, you've done that with Palmer College. You did it on the YMCA. That's when you do it on behalf of somebody else. And then we have capital leases. When you have larger pieces of equipment to finance, we generally do that with a capital lease. You approved a couple items tonight on the capital lease. Let's take a look at the outstanding debt, which is really a great picture for you right now. This table breaks down the general obligation debt that we have back in 2016. Actually, that was a refunding of Series 2006 bonds to lower the interest rate. So there wasn't any new money in 2016. The last general obligation bond you did, which general obligations ad valorem supported debt, was back in 2006. And I think one of your fire stations and a couple other projects were done with that. In 2014, that was basically a refunding of 2004 bonds, again for interest cost savings. Then you've had some SRF loans, which is through DEP on the state level for water and sewer. And stormwater, we did an issue back in 2005, and that's continuing until 2035. Another SRF loan, and then we have a couple CRA loans. And the largest one, the Eastport, has already matured. As you can see there, it matured on 10/1/24, and the town center tax increment. If you complete your transaction successfully with Bristol, the proceeds, I think you're planning on using that to pay off the rest of that bond issue. So the two things here is the takeaway on this page, I think on this table, is just the outstanding principal is very low and the maturity dates are pretty short. When you look at water and sewer, you can see that in a couple of years you'll be completely debt-free on the water and sewer side, giving you some bonding capacity if you wanted to move in that direction for water and sewer improvements. The next slide is a little more graphic, and it just shows you how quickly you're just going to be able to pay that debt down. So let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that we'll focus on in the next few months. The most immediate one is the Parks and Rec general obligation bond issue, the referendum approved by the voters. And we show that as possibly being issued in May, but we'll be prepared to go to market earlier than that if the market is friendly to us. And so I think we can be prepared by probably March on that. We'll come back and give you a more detailed financing plan probably in February. And then you can see the ops facility, which you're receiving bids when in December, Wayne, on that, and the estimate there. And then you've got a few other projects. Cambridge Basin, the wastewater facility upgrades is a fairly large one, and that may get pushed down or pushed further back depending on your needs and your growth. And then the City Hall, you've got to make some decisions on what you want to do there and how to finance that and what the amount would be. So those are the general areas that staff has brought to our attention that need some focus. And so the immediate focus will really be on the Parks and Rec issue as well as the Public Utilities Operations Facility. And then the others will fall into play a little bit later. At this point, I'd just like Joel to hit on a couple slides on current market conditions. Let me see. Is that on a separate one, Robin? This will be the most exciting, right?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Again, my name is Joel Tyndall with Hilltop Securities. We have served as underwriter to the city for a number of years now. I'll just give you a brief update on the market. I'm not sure if you can see this slide too well, but interest rates, this gives you an idea of both taxable and taxable interest rates excuse me, over since 2012. So certainly, as a lot of you are aware, interest rates have gone up over the last couple of years. You can see that in this graph. Post-pandemic, rates dropped to pretty low levels compared to historical levels, but have certainly risen in the wake of inflationary pressures and the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. One thing I'll point out on this graph, a couple of things. You can see that the rates in 2024, when you compare to historical levels since 2012, they don't necessarily seem extremely high. They're kind of in that range. But the one thing I'll point out, the Federal Reserve has started cutting interest rates more recently, the Fed funds target rate, most recently in November, earlier this month. And you can see that yellow line, which really tracks more of the short-term interest rates. That's a SOFR rate. You can see it started to come down more recently in the wake of the Federal Reserve lowering short-term interest rates. However, the long-term interest rates on the lines you see below actually have gone up. So it's kind of gone inverse, where the interest rate yield curve has become more normalized, where short-term rates are lower than longer-term rates. So when people think the Fed's cutting rates, overall long-term interest rates are going to go down. That's not always the case, as you can see on this graph right here. This is a more zoomed in 20-year MMD, which is a benchmark yield in the municipal market. So you can see again how the rates have gone up substantially post-pandemic, and more recently have, in the wake of a 50 basis point Fed cut in the last couple months, rates have gone up a little bit since that point. Obviously, we've had some volatility around the election, and again, Fed policy, economic indicators coming out, geopolitical risks, but rates have ticked up just a little bit. This next slide, these are two municipal indices, the bond buyer GO, or General Obligation Index, and then the Revenue Bond Index. So this gives you a perspective, again, since 2012, of where those indices lie in relation to where they've been since 2012. And both of them kind of track similarly, as you can see. They're a little bit higher than the average, but they're certainly not at the top of the range during that period. They're not currently. And then just to finish it off, this last slide, MMD is a municipal, a benchmark in the municipal market, so it's tax-exempt borrowing. This shows yield ranges from 1 to 30-year yields. The red line shows you the average since 1993, so this is really zooming out and looking where rates been for a longer period of time. The blue line is the most current, and then the gray line, or the gray bars, are basically the range during the period. So you can see since 1993, we're kind of in the middle of the range, and actually, for the most part, other than the first few years of the yields, we're actually below the average in that longer period of time. And with that, I'll turn it back to Toby. Thank you.
Can you, I'm sorry, before you disappear on us, can you go back to the one slide there that you showed all the way back to 2012 and the different rates? I have a quick question for you on that. Yeah, so if municipality is looking for, like maybe Toby was talking about earlier, like a favorable time in the market, where do we see that? Are we saying favorable is anything below 4%? I mean, if you're thinking strategically, like when would you pull the trigger to try, is your best opportunity to go out and borrow money to do some big capital stuff? I mean, is that how
Now.
you adjust? Yeah, right?
Yeah. I mean, nobody ultimately has a crystal ball of what's going
Right.
to happen going forward. I think rates overall for 30 plus years have kind of been on a downward trend, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the trend that they're going to be on going forward. There's obviously been a lot of monetary stimulus globally. There's been a lot of inflationary pressures that are going to, over the long term, have to work their way out of the system. So whether rates get back to like pandemic lows, that may not happen, or for a long time. But with that said, currently, when you look at some of the longer term averages, it's not outside of the norm from that standpoint. So it's not necessarily a bad time from that
This
perspective.
is where you get into, you're trying to save a little bit of money on interest, and you delay your purchasing decision, and you pay a low interest rate on a higher priced product.
Yeah. Thank you.
You follow me.
Yep.
Interesting.
I think that was a good question, Scott, because and Don's input was salient. We've had clients that have wanted to sort of wait for the market to come to them, but what's gotten in their way is inflationary pressure, and they have missed the mark in terms of getting their projects done. And so they, in terms of trying to save maybe 0.5%, well, not even 0.5%, 10 basis points, which is 0.1%. You've just got to manage your project timing, and we'll take care of the market timing and get you in at the right time.
You've helped us refinance before to lower rates.
Yes.
You've helped us take advantage of that.
Yeah, and so as we saw on some of those other issues, we're very proactive in terms of looking at refunding opportunities. We'll talk about that when we bring a financing plan back to you. So we'll come back in a few months, I think probably in February, and start to get into a little more detail about how to finance some of these projects and what your alternatives are. And then we'll make some decisions as to which direction you want to go in and the timing, and then we'll come back and authorize a borrowing if you decide to borrow.
Okay.
So you're not making any decisions tonight on borrowing. And with that, I want to thank you for allowing us to be here tonight and to continue to serve you. I've enjoyed working with Don. I've enjoyed working with you, Drew.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure over the years.
Yeah.
We've been able to
We
do some good
just thought it
things.
was really important to have you guys hear this. I'm glad one Councilmember-elect is here. So we have some major projects upcoming between the parks bond, but the wastewater treatment plant upgrade is ballparked $85 million total. We just got $15 million, and it cuts it down to about 70. But that plant floods. It's in the east side of the city, and we get 3 feet of water in there, and these storms too. So when we are required, there are standards that are going up. So we're going to have to upgrade the facility. We have about a decade to get this done, to upgrade the facility. We also have got to get that facility more resilient going forward. So that's going to be a major issue. The bond's going to be a major issue. We haven't, the stormwater plan hasn't even been finished yet to the point where we know the projects and put price tags on them. We're going to do everything we can to get other money from federal and state sources, but likely some of those projects you may choose to direct us to borrow money to build some of those too. So you may see some of the stormwater projects come forward so that you can do them quicker than simply waiting on grants. So we have good support as to when is the best time to do it and which is the best way to fund them going forward. But we wanted you to see those things that are going to be decisions we'll be making in the next couple of years, including the major projects with infrastructure.
I just want to leave one thought, is I'm about to leave the council behind, but I'm going to leave this thought with you. Personally, I hate debt. In my life, I hate debt. This is a little different because we're not talking about the debt for the users now. Some of these things this building's 40 years old. When you're talking about public utilities, you're talking about facilities with lifespans of 30 to 40, 50 years. You can pay a lot of money now and avoid debt, and people who will use these things later and don't have to pay anything at all will thank us. Or we can borrow money at a very low interest rate over a longer period of time, and actually as the future value of the dollar decreases, and many times you end up getting a bargain because the dollar that you're paying on later has less value cumulative over a time with the inflation. So this is actually in some ways making sure that all the users pay a little bit of their fair share over time for long-term needs. When you're talking about infrastructure and utilities, if you plan it right, you don't want to be frivolous with it, but if you plan it right, that's why debt can make good sense. Gets things done.
And one thing you approved this evening was the capital leases. Those were at 3.6% and 3.67% over a 5 or 7 year period. You're earning more than 3.6 and 3.67, so those made a lot of sense.
10-year treasury's already at 4.39, so yep. Toby, thank you very much.
Thank you, Don, for your
Appreciate
service. Drew, thank you.
Sir, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Item 19, board interviews and reports, and board appointments, interviews, and reports. Item 19 is Citizen Advisory Committee for the TPO.
Bobby Ball.
It's a Bobby Ball sighting.
All the way back from Europe.
Bobby Ball with the CAC for the TPO. We had our monthly meeting, and I'll first say that you won't see me in December because they're canceling December's meeting. So that was one of the action items today. We recommended revisions to the TIP to allow for, among other things, a couple of Port Orange projects with the sidewalk gap inclusion. The call for projects is going to come out probably in the next 2 weeks, I think. And so Tim's already aware of that and working on making sure Port Orange gets projects on the list. Outside of that, I-95 and Pioneer Trail is out for bid, I think, later this month, and with an expected start of construction in the spring of '25. And I think that's all I got.
Copy that.
Man, Bobby. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bobby, appreciate you. Item 20, Planning Commission Board appointments. These are 2-year terms. We have 4 openings. Right now we have 3 current commissioners who have applied for reappointment, and we have a 4th spot and 2 applicants. I would entertain nominations now. I'm sorry, the 3 returning appointees that have asked for reappointment: Stan Schmidt, Bobo Fahmy, and Tom Jordan. Nominations are open.
Go ahead. It's your last night, man. Go ahead, Drew.
What, are we going to do it? Are we nominating
You
4?
can nominate 3 as a slate and then decide on the 4th if you'd like.
All right,
I
I'd
think that would be
like to
easiest.
nominate the 3 currently serving appointees to be reappointed.
Stan Schmidt, Bobo
I'll
Fahmy, and
second
Tom
that.
Yes,
Jordan.
sir.
That's
Yes,
your
sir.
motion?
Yes,
And
I'll second.
Would any of those 3 applicants like to come up here and try to talk us out of it?
Good choices.
Wave and support.
We pay our volunteers so well, you can tell. Comments, questions, council?
Appreciate your service. Continued.
Yep, they've served
Thank
us
you.
well over the years.
With that, on the slate of those 3, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Appreciate the fact that you do it for no pay, no benefits, and all the grief in the world.
And free
Thank you,
harassment.
And you keep signing up to do it again. We love it.
Gluttony
With
for
that, we have
punishment.
1 appointment remaining, a 2-year term. We have 2 applicants, I believe Caden Shaper and David
Daniel.
Daniel Malagal. I did not do a very good job of reading without my glasses. Would either, before I take nominations, would either of the 2 applicants care to speak? Anybody?
Teach us how to pronounce your last name.
Actually, he got it very well. It's Malagal. Dan Malagal, Port Orange resident, Port Orange citizen, business owner, Chamber of Commerce member, BNI member. I've been a resident of Southeast Volusia for about 30 years, New Smyrna Beach for about 25, here in Port Orange now. And between my day job and doing the food truck with my wife with Donut NV here in Port Orange, my days are really, really busy, but I really, I've got an interest in trying to give back to my community, to the people around me. And talking to a friend of mine, he suggested I apply for one of the commissioner boards and try and give back some of my time. And so when this came available, I jumped on the opportunity. I've worked for City of Daytona, worked for City of New Smyrna, actually Utilities Commission New Smyrna. Provide my time down there when I can. Worked for electric company, also did some planning. We were building out Venetian Bay back in the day, so I can read some blueprints as well. And so I would just like the opportunity to try and serve my community, help my friends, help my family. And watching the last couple of commissioner meetings, I started to question whether I really wanted to do this.
Are you sure?
Yeah, especially this board as well, because the planning board has really gotten some arrows thrown at them. But still the same, if I can help my community, I think, I'd really like to do that. Appreciate you.
Thank
Even with all
you, Dan.
that.
Thanks, Dan.
If you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer anything.
No, just a quick comment for you. I just want to say thank you because before you stood before here tonight and even turned in this application, you've been coming to council meetings very regularly.
Yeah.
And it's noticed, and I'm assuming you are coming because you wanted to learn more about the process in the city and all that kind of stuff. And
absolutely,
probably a couple of nights, if it weren't for you and maybe 1 or 2 other people, we'd have been talking in empty seats. So, but I do appreciate you taking that time to come and be here and be present and learn and all that stuff. So that
you gotta
I
live if you wanna
recognize
know.
that, and I just don't want to go without acknowledging that. So thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dan.
appreciate it.
All right. Is Caden Shaper here? Come on up.
Hey guys. Hi, my name's Caden Shopper. I've been in Port Orange for about 4 years now. I've been in Volusia County since 2012. Graduated Seabreeze High School and Mural Aeronautical University after that. Right after college, most of my background's been in construction. I spent some time doing Fed projects down at the Cape, as well as heavy civil work for Ward & Smith down in Miami. Most recently, my last 2.5 years, I've been a commercial real estate advisor with Caldwell Banker Commercial Benchmark out of Ormond. I've worked with a lot of municipalities and the county in the past. I'm pretty familiar with some of the zoning and future land use requirements for different projects. And in addition to that, I'm also a general contractor here in the state of Florida. So I've spent some time building different projects, and I'm also very familiar with the blueprints as well.
Okay. Questions, council?
Sounds good. I mean,
I appreciate you putting in for it. When I saw on the resume Seabreeze High School, I'm like, yeah, because I graduated from Seabreeze High School.
Let's go Sand Crabs, right?
Then I saw the
Go
years
Crabs,
difference
right?
between when you graduated and I graduated.
A lot closer to my son's dates.
I was right- I was right there with you,
Yeah.
Scott.
But thanks,
Think you're like these
thanks for
young
putting it in.
guys.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you.
thank you.
With that, nominations are open. Just a reminder, if you nominate one name, then we'll vote on it with a voice vote. If you nominate two names, we will have a ballot. And each of us will have to fill that ballot out, and the clerk will tally the results. With that, nominations are now open.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Daniel Malagol.
Okay.
I don't know if I got close or not. So.
Close enough.
I'll second that.
We have a nomination and a second. I have to ask 3 times. Do we have other nominations? Do we have other nominations? Do we have other nominations? We have no other nominations. Nominations are now closed. With that, all in favor of appointing Daniel Malagall to the Planning Commission for a 2-year term, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Naysayers will say nay.
Nay.
And, well, there's one. It was not unanimous, which means you got to impress him. You got to work extra hard.
Well, Mayor, if I may, it's just.
No, that's okay.
No,
I was,
real quick.
I was also going to say that with that.
Because we're not having any discussion, if I may.
Well, Guy, and I also don't want you to go away, because you've applied for other boards as well, and I appreciate the fact
keep after it.
we're going to use somebody who's willing to work for us for free.
I'll be here for a while. So.
There you go.
Perfect.
Reed, go ahead.
I was gonna say, both you guys had great resumes and everything. This is not really anything against you, Daniel, or against you, Caden, so much as it is just a policy I have when it comes for people wanting to serve on these boards. I want to feel like I actually know the person. I want to have a phone call, maybe go to lunch, like actually get to know you before I, select you to be on one of these boards. I have confidence either one of you would have done a great job. Daniel, I'll be looking forward to seeing what you do. I'm rooting for you, obviously. It's just a personal thing with me that's my standard is like I want to feel like I actually know the person that I'm giving the opportunity to. That's the only reason I'm voting for no is because we don't know each other very well, but I look forward to seeing in the next 2 years what you do and getting to know you. So that way in 2 years I can be a yes when it comes time to reappoint you.
Looking at both of their resumes, it's obvious to me that what my dad said is true. If you want something done, ask a busy person. With that, the public hearing portion of our meeting is now open. Second reading of ordinance number 2024-19. Matt, if you read that into the record for me, please.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Second Amendment to the River Yard Master Development Agreement and Conceptual Development Plan for approximately plus or minus 11 acres, generally located at the northeast corner of Dunlop Avenue and Ridgewood Avenue, and including properties located at 3641 Ridgewood Avenue, 3840 Ridgewood Avenue, clarifying permitted uses, revising the location of public parking, revising the multifamily parking ratio, and updating the conceptual development plan layout, providing for conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-19.
I'll second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Second reading, comments, council.
Nothing on
I
second.
see none. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Council, final comments? Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Basham?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Item 22 is second reading of ordinance number 2024-23, amending the Code of Ordinances. Matt, if you'd read that into the record for me, please.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 6, Section 6-3, relating to the list of properties exempt from general prohibition of possession and consumption of alcohol on public property owned or controlled by the City of Port Orange, and establishing certain parameters for the consumption thereof, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-23.
I will second that.
We have a proper motion and a second. Item is open on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Council comments or questions?
Yeah, we discussed this.
I see none. Going to the public, would anyone care to speak to the item? I see none. Back to us. Final comments or questions, council? I see none. Call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. Item 23 is second reading of ordinance 2024-24, amending the information technology policies for city boards and commissions. Matt, if you would.
An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Article 3, Boards and Commissions, Division 1, Electronic Information Systems, amending terminology to be consistent with recently adopted information technology and cybersecurity policies, expanding applicability, adding additional prohibited uses, addressing security and licensing issues, amending the public records requirements, establishing a new Section 2-58, adding use requirements, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, codification, scrivener's errors, and effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2024-24.
I'll second.
The item is open on the floor for discussion after a proper motion is second. Council comments or questions?
Not on this one.
I see none. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? I see none. Back to us. Final comments or questions? With that, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Yes.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Stiltner?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 5-0. With that, the public hearing portion of the meeting is closed. Regular agenda item, item 24. Art House request to paint murals on the 8 columns and embankment walls for the Dunlawton Avenue Bridge located in the Down Under area. What an obvious yes. Oh, wait a second, that slipped out. Wayne, who do we have presenting?
I will be brief then, based off that. Tim Berman, Community Development. I think basically 2023, we took the Down Under plan before council and approved, and one of the aspects was to paint murals in the downtown or Down Under area then. We recently met with Art House, and they are interested in doing painting of murals on the columns. There's 8 of them on the east side, along with the bridge embankment. We've included some of the artist renderings. I'm gonna let Cameron from Art House speak on that because she does a lot better job in describing the artwork than I can. We've reviewed the proposal with her. It complies with the requirements we're looking for in terms of the mural. Also, too, we have reviewed this with FDOT, and FDOT has signed off on it too since it's their lease then. So staff has recommended approval, and here's Cameron to further discuss the mural project then.
Okay.
Good evening, council, mayor, and staff. Cameron Benson, Volusia County Echo Gallery Advisory Committee, Board of Directors for the Volusia County Cultural Alliance, and Executive Director of Art House. I thank you for allowing me to present today. I have a couple things that I would like to discuss for you, and they all tie into the mural project. Back in July, when we gave our annual update, I told myself that I would come and give you more updates of the good things that we've been doing in the community, and we have been ever so busy. It has been a scramble to find the time, but I feel that that is a wonderful problem to have with the growth of our small but fierce mission. I would just like to talk about economic impact with tourism. Again, estimated $172,000 in non-resident, non-Port Orange resident revenue generated from guests to our gallery from all over the county and outside of the county. Valued by national standard, under national standard, $173,000 worth of free admission into our gallery, as we do not charge admission to anyone to come see the wonderful art that we have displayed. $8,550 in art scholarships awarded to Port Orange students ages 10 to 18. $19,700 in outreach art programs for underprivileged, at-risk, and special needs youth in our community. $17,649 in free community programs. Chalk art competition was canceled this year, but free youth art stations, painting classes, Port Orange Rec, and many of our other classes. 3,619 children from Port Orange were enrolled in our classes and camps this year. It is a safe program for children to come and to create. We are a resource for the families in our community, and we are proud to serve in that manner. Brief infographic. Of the 62 public school art programs in Volusia County, we serve them all with 104 Volusia County art educators, over 16 municipalities, 131,457 people served throughout the year. 16,889 art supplies and equipment raised for Volusia County Art Schools classrooms. 3,600 service hours of art lessons provided through our camps and classes. 3,400 children attending art house classes and camps. 412 service hours of art therapy and enrichment for at-risk youth ages 10 to 16. 237 service hours of art therapy for homeless children ages 4 to 16. And 298 service hours of art therapy for children with autism ages 3 to 5. We have received in this past year $12,229 in grants, which is less than 5% of our general budget. We make it work through the generosity of our volunteers, our board, and the community that come together that help make our mission happen. Now, there was a reason for that update as well. So I would like to talk briefly on the funding plan for the Down Under project. I assume that you've all seen the renderings for the project. I'm in the process.
Let's just say very, very cool.
We're in the process of meeting with and arranging for the meetings of the businesses, local businesses in Down Under, for any feedback that they would like to give on those renderings. For our Down Under project, we will fund this in several ways. So it was initially quoted you for the Down Under revitalization project that it would cost roughly $174,000 for the mural. Doing independent research, Art House has found that it will cost roughly $170,000 to provide these murals for the city of Port Orange. Instead of using our taxpayer monies for that, instead we are utilizing a grant, sponsorship, donation, and community compassion business plan going forward with this, which we've already started well into the steps to begin funding this. All I require is vote for approval for this. This is a legacy that you will all be leaving behind, and a beautiful way to bring our community together and bring in tourism money, which statistics show that murals bring in tourism and they sort of keep the graffiti artists away. Mm-hmm. We have 3 tiers of sponsors with limited amounts of sponsorship. We are not looking to utilize funding of this for our programs. This is for the mural itself. With our 3 tiers, there are 3 available sponsorship slots for Grand Patron of the Arts, $25,000, Arts Ambassador, $10,000, will be 4 slots for those, and Steward of the Arts, which will be $5,000. That is open to businesses, individuals, anyone who would like to sponsor this. Of course, sponsorship benefits would include prominent logo placement and business name placement on the plaque, commemorative plaque that will go underneath this bridge commemorating the mural itself, as well as all social media, PR, any marketing rep available. Our community. Donations generated from the community in return for involvement in the mural process. We have the stream to community members will be welcome to register to be part of the mural painting process on the south wall side of the mural. We'll have everything stenciled out and ready to go, and this will be a learning experience, but it'll also be a way for the community to come together and be a part of this and take pride in what's going under this amazing establishment, or this amazing bridge. 4 winners per week will be drawn to aid in the mural process and learn the art of mural creation. All they have to do is like and share our sponsorship requests online. It's just an easy, fun way to help get the word out so that we can pay for the paints, supplies, and grants. We've begun laying the groundwork and have begun a handful of grants through here. Funding for the DUR murals. Grant application preliminary stages have begun. Capital campaign goal for this is $55,000. You see a lot of money there. That would equal more than 55. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket, and we're not assuming that we would be awarded all of these grants. But from the Florida Division of Arts and Culture, which is unfortunately right now on a hold, we do hope for the later end of the 3-year process for this. Volusia County Tourism Development Grant, Volusia Eco Grant, Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation Grant, National Endowment of the Arts GAP Grant, which is Group Art Project Grant, Asphalt Art Initiative Grant, the Home Depot Community Project Grant, and the Walmart Community Giving Grant. That's just a small amount that we have started now. We plan to do more. Our goal in these murals is not only to save the city of Port Orange taxpayer money. It is to create a beautiful, live, vibrant legacy created by our community. 3 of these grants that we qualify for will be part of the process that we will be working with the local schools, 10 in Port Orange, through their art clubs and art classes. Once we have things stenciled out on the sidewalls, not underneath the columns, we will bring out art clubs and art classrooms on field trips, and the children will help paint. Mural art is not just a wonderful thing to behold, it is a career. And any sort of inspiration that we can give to our youth and finding a career in the arts is part of our mission, and we are proud to do it. I would love to take any questions or suggestions that council and mayor may have.
Before we do that, I think it'd be appropriate if our assigned committee person to Art House, Mr. Grubbs, make the motion for approval.
I can't thank you enough for what you've done and what you've put together for this. So I would like to make a motion for council to approve Art House on this project, on the mural projects that they are proposing to us.
And Drew, since this is your last shot at seconding something.
That's probably the easiest second ever.
The item is open on the floor for discussion. Council questions? Go ahead, Griller. This is such a controversial thing.
You know, it's not really a question. It's first off, it's a big thank you to Mayor and Councilman Foley, because Councilman Foley actually had Art House as a committee, and he got, like all of us, we get tied up with a lot of stuff, and he asked me if I would take it, and Don asked me if I'd take it, and I said yes. I didn't know what Art House was.
It's a house of art.
Man,
So that's insulting. It's so much more than that.
Yeah, I know.
It's so much more than that.
It's just so amazing and enlightening what you have brought to me, all your committee members, going there on the days and seeing the kids' involvement. It's so much more. The numbers, what you guys generate for the city, it's outstanding for something so little and so small where you're at with what you're doing. I can't speak enough for you guys. I am definitely an advocate. What you're going to be doing for the Down Under project and what it's going to do for the city and beautify the other side of the river is going to be amazing. And I just don't want to, I'm that guy. I'm going to ask. Don't stop there. I'm going to find you more stuff. So as these projects get finished, we're going to have more stuff for Art House to be involved in, because it's amazing what it does. I drive down, and I think all of y'all have been down to New Smyrna, where they did the murals underneath the overpass of 44. That's been done for years. And every time you go down there, I see myself looking up at them as I'm driving by. So here we are, we're finishing to do that concept underneath the Dunlop Bridge in a district area of restaurants that are going to be able to see it and have a bigger impact than just somebody driving by. They'll be able to stop and look at it. So, Cameron, for your team and everybody that you've got, thank you.
Thank you. The artwork is designed for a huge impact on tourism as well. All of the fish and wildlife in the renderings are local fish and wildlife that our fishermen catch and we eat.
I think Scott knows a few of them.
They're designed so that people can stand next to them in each area for pictures, for further recognition and further tourism income for the city of Port Orange.
Before I send you away, you brought some people with you. I think you should make them stand up and be recognized for standing behind you.
Thank you very much. I would like to introduce our co-founder and board president of Art House Foundation, Lori Gomon-Ring.
Lori.
I would like to recognize and ask to stand Tara Good, Vice President of Communications, Art House Foundation. And I would like to recognize and ask to stand Katie Tappan, longtime board member, previous gallery manager.
Council, before we hear from the public, are any other questions?
Cameron, so from start to finish, what kind of a timeline do you anticipate?
So roughly 2 to 3 years. The first 2 columns are to be done this fall. They are the smaller, shorter columns. I'm looking at between 2 and 3 weeks. We are scheduling that with Tim to be done during the low times over the Christmas and New Year's holiday, sort of end of the year, beginning of the year, so that we don't interfere with any sort of tourism or even local traffic going to these restaurants.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments or questions?
I was a little surprised Councilman Grubbs didn't work a scuba diver into the artwork somewhere along there.
Who's to say he might
Slightly
not?
disappointed.
Any other comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Foley?
Yes.
Councilman Grubbs?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilman Bastian?
100% yes.
Vice Mayor Sittler?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, and you know the way you guys voted, it only counts as one vote. You don't get extra. So it's definitely
I don't
5
care.
votes. Go get them. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Additional items, item 25, city attorney report.
Nothing for tonight.
Excellent report, thank you. City manager report.
I just want to thank Councilman Bastian and Mayor Burnett for the opportunity to be here and be the manager. Thank you for what you did. We'll miss you and your time up here. Go back many years with you guys, and it's been a great council to be a part of. So thank you for everything that you've done for me and everything for this community. I think you've put a lot into it, and we're grateful for what you've done.
Appreciate that. That's
Definitely appreciate it. And thank you for coming back, Wayne. Throwing your name into the hat and signing back up to do this, so we appreciate you.
Item 27, City Council Committee Reports. Proposal for Advisory Board. Last meeting, Councilman Grubbs proposed an advisory board for stormwater advisory. We heard a lengthy presentation. I'm always reticent to take action on something that hasn't been agended, and that also gave us an opportunity to reflect on the things you presented. Tracy, would you like to make a motion and then give us a recap?
I'd like to make a motion for the proposal of the Stormwater Advisory Board to be accepted by City Council.
I'll second.
We do have a second. Okay. With that discussion,
So to go through the process, everybody was here last time. I don't want to make light of what this proposal is. I had a lot of people reach out to me over the past 2 weeks and ask many questions about it. I want to make sure that this is clear as far as council is concerned. This is a complement to the master plan. This is not a stranglehold or to stop processes of our master plan. I've read some off-site Facebook posts and things of that nature, and there's a little concerning with how this is being brought about, and it's got nothing to do with this. This is to help the city. This is a secondary advisory board. Just like we have a planning board, we have an environmental advisory board. These boards give suggestions and ideals to the city. They're not mandates by any stretch of the imagination. And that's where people were coming back and trying to say that it would be mandating this and that. It's not. It's to find and help where holes are that maybe the master plan did not look at. For me, it's hearing the numbers that we have an outside source, and I get it. I wasn't here when this got voted in. An outside source of $480,000 to make a master stormwater plan. It was needed. We desperately need it. These ideals and suggestions, we have to have engineers and things involved. But if we can have a secondary source, God forbid I use a word like free, from engineers coming in to help us, I'm a little concerned with the concern that people were having with this. We have 5 people in this advisory boards. 2 are citizens. I want the input of the citizens to help driving this advisory board. The other 3 of the 5 are very specific individuals. Might be somebody out there that might be for a new advisory board. Because what we're looking for is we're looking for a Florida licensed civil engineer. Somebody that understands what we're looking to do. The second piece of the next person is a Florida Division I contractor. And I spoke this last time and everybody wanted to know what that meant. Florida I Division contractor is a general contractor, a building contractor, or a residential contractor. They all hold that title. But if I just put in there that I just want a general contractor, we may have a building contractor that's more than qualified to do what we're asking for, and it doesn't allow them to apply. So we allowed this to be encompassing those 3 types of contractors. And then last one is the specialist. God, we need this. A dewatering specialist or an underground utility contractor. One of those 2 people. We're talking about moving water. We're talking about moving water that is not our water, coming in from outside sources. Every person up here talked about this tonight, about extremity of water coming from other cities. Can we help the other cities? Yeah. What would it be nice to know that we could put an advisory board together and put plans together that we could hand to the other cities? What they do with it is up to them. But if they actually used one to help our city, wow, the effects that may have. The mission, and I'm going to read this again, the mission is to enhance the city's stormwater management by making recommendations. That got pulled out of context over the last 2 weeks. Making recommendations on possible improvements that will increase drainage and capabilities for the intense stormwater events. Yes, the master plan is doing that. But that doesn't mean that we can't have oversight of our own citizens to look at that and put input in it. And what's it cost us? Nothing. The scope. The Stormwater Advisory Board will review the volume of stormwater within the city's boundaries and influx of water from neighboring areas, which we've talked about tonight from everybody. And then lastly is the reports. The board is expected to present quarterly to council for potential stormwater issues and propose solutions for council and city management. Nowhere does it say we are going to be telling you what to do. And I've had a lot of blowback on this one where everybody was talking and going that it's going to jeopardize the master plan. It's not. It's got nothing to do with the master plan. It's to help enhance the master plan at very little to no cost to the city. Now, I don't know about y'all. I don't like raising taxes. We spent $500,000 to put projects together to fix these problems. But what if we could have had a third of that money back because we had an advisory board beforehand propose things that we were already working on? That's my beef. That's where I have it. So for you guys, I don't know what to say. There's a lot of things on it I could continue, but we hashed this out. I did the history chart of building and land development. Scott talked about, code being in 1990. That's when code started. And 54% is the magical number that the city was already built before 1990. And 54% of the city, unfortunately, is where we're having the major issues. And we need to wrap our hands around it in our heads and collectively work together with outside sources, inside sources as our staff that is doing an excellent job, but don't debunk our community. Our community has beautiful resources that can come together and help. I'm not going to say that the first couple of months won't be rocky, because everybody is compassionate right now because their homes had water in it. And we're going to have to listen to that. And we should listen to that. But we have to get through that to be able to make the right decisions to help the overall city's concerns. So that's why I'm proposing the Stormwater Advisory Board.
Okay, council. Scott, why don't I start with you?
So I would just say to Councilman Grubbs, I appreciate the idea. I think one of the things that we've seen in the last few months is that all the ideas are welcome for sure. I will tell you that having been on the council for quite some time now and seeing how processes like this work, with the recent events, I am very resistant to do anything that's going to slow down progress and process to move forward. And I know social media sometimes can grab a lot of emotions and put a lot of bad information out there, like the city hasn't done anything, which is just not factual. And you know, my concerns are, you've touched on some of those, is that we have to have a track. We have to get on that track. We have invested $500,000 in professional civil engineering firms, one of the best in the state of Florida. They have looked almost forensically at the city's stormwater systems. I don't see how a citizen advisory board would be able to look at that level. And I get that you're saying it would be a compliment. My concerns would be that it would slow processes down, whether that's with staff time, resource time, all those kinds of things. That being said, I will say that if there is any resident of the city of Port Orange with any expertise or any suggestions, they should be sending those to us now. I would love to see those. I welcome those. I think they too need to continue to come to our meetings and our workshops. When Kimley Horn comes here and makes that presentation, that is a fabulous time for those that have that expertise to be part of that process and communicate directly with us with what they see in that information. I think it would be immensely helpful. So, while I'm hesitant to initiate another board or a layer that could stop or delay anything at all with this, especially with the timelines we're already up against, I appreciate the idea, and I appreciate the concept completely, and I truly welcome anybody that has that information and wants to bring that to us. They should be doing that now. We're good with that. I'm 100%.
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, as you're sitting there saying it would delay the processes, those processes are already driven by staff. This has got nothing to do with what we already have in the pipeline. This is an advisory board to find the other elements that they didn't find. And I'm going to go back to the days when you were a lieutenant and somebody brought you something. And did you have outside sources that came in and helped with law enforcement? It's the same thing. It is actually the same thing. You have the FDLE and you have different departments to come and help in investigations. And this one's not costing us anything. It's costing us, yes, maybe time and energy inside the clerk's office. And I'm sorry to the clerk's office, they're probably all going to kick my good leg after this.
They're good with it.
Yeah, they might kick your bad leg too.
But it's one of those things that right now we're in a tinderbox of stormwater. We have been for 2 years. And you and I both know we're going to be sitting here with another storm that's coming down the pipeline, and we have them engineering something for next year. That means it's been 3 years. And I understand the city works slowly. But if there's smaller things that this advisory board may find dealing with pipes that got overlooked, being able to hold a meeting to help describe B19 Canal, Nova Road Canal, dealing with hysons, that our staff doesn't have to have those type of topics because they're educating and helping with those topics. We leave the hysons in the water because it's filtering. Everything under the hysons has been purged.
All
How many
right.
times have we had that?
I'm going to stop you right there only because you've had a chance to present, and I need everybody to make their comments, and we'll come back to it.
Okay.
We could be here 3 more hours if we do it this way, but I need to make sure everybody has a chance to chime in. Did you get?
Yeah, I'm good.
Drew?
All right, Tracy, I also can appreciate the effort and the thought that you put into this, and I share some of the same concerns with Scott. I'll go back in history a ways, a number of years. We created a budget and audit finance committee, advisory board, whatever you want to call it, and things went sour and it was a disaster. And we ended that committee, and I mean, I was one of the votes that created it, and I'm sorry for that because it did not work out. It was probably one of the worst decisions, and I'm not saying this is but it was bad, and it hurt staff's morale, it hurt employees. They were ostracized, called names, and it was just a disaster. And I then and there I said I will never do that to our staff and our employees again. So unfortunately I can't support this. But again, nothing against you. I appreciate the effort, but I saw what happened the last time, and I'm just not willing to do that again and have them go through that again. It's not fair to them.
Reed, your thoughts?
Well, there's no such thing as a bad idea, right? I mean, if there are, I'm sure they've come out of my mouth on this dais. So I think that the idea has some merit. I really do. But I share a lot of the concerns that Scott said. I also am concerned about creating a board with such specific requirements for positions, and this comes from my time on the EAB, actually my time on the TPO currently. Just being an example, the River to Sea TPO, we're supposed to meet tomorrow. We can't because we don't have a quorum. And this is a major board with just elected officials whose job is merely to serve on this board. It's one of our many undertasks that we have, and we have a difficult time making a quorum. So I really worry about making something so specific. I see the benefit of the individuals listed here, and to me it certainly seems like they can add value. But like Scott's saying, if there's value to be added, then we need to have them be meeting with people, staff, or whoever it may be. I know our staff. I know Brett, Juno, and Tom, not to mention Robin. Robin and Juno were with me today in a resident's yard while the resident gave us all of his ideas. We walked up and down ditches next to train tracks with him and over down the road to commercial properties, and we listened to all of those ideas, and they get taken back and looked at. So anyone, whether you have specific people in mind for this or not, anyone who has something that they really think will benefit, I believe in our staff, and I believe they will take those nuggets of information and they will apply them as soon as they can be applied. From serving as well as I do, most of our issue is finance at this point. I mean, I just went out and talked to a couple residents in the hall and gave them a very honest answer. If you gave me a check for $150 million, $200 million, and we spent on all the projects we could find, I still can't look you in the eye and guarantee you're never going to be flooded. Scott said it the same thing, But at the same time, every idea, it needs to be heard out. And so I think that while I'm not in favor of a board, I'm in favor of getting all the information we can in front of the people if we think it can make a difference. And whatever I can do to help facilitate that, I'll gladly throw my support for those kind of situations.
I'm going to make a suggestion. Some of my concerns mirror Drew's, because the last thing I want to do is add bureaucracy and slow things down even more when some of these things. I think we are on the cusp of getting that stormwater management plan, a plan that we've never really had in full. We've had segments of plans over the years. This city has never had a complete stormwater management plan in its history, to my knowledge. We've had segments of plans that addresses regional problems, and we've worked those things successfully over time. But the size and scope of this, I think, is too important. I don't want to slow it down even more when we're on the cusp of getting that. We don't even know what it looks like yet. The one thing that I would, and the other thing is, I don't want information being buffered between staff, a committee, and us. I want that information coming directly to us as quickly as possible so we can make better decisions. However, I'm not going to say it's not without merit. I just think it might be a little premature. If I had to vote on it tonight, based on the fact that I don't have that stormwater management plan and I don't know what's in it and I don't know what it's going to look like, I would vote no. What I would suggest is, instead of killing the idea tonight, if we withdraw the motion and withdraw the second, then it still remains an option for this council. If you're dissatisfied, Mayor-elect Stiltner, you can put it back on the agenda. If you're dissatisfied as a council person and one other person is also dissatisfied, two council people can put it back on the agenda. If we kill it tonight, it's done. I don't want to take, me personally, I don't want to take the risk that goes with implementing something with the rough edges and early going at the same time we're on the cusp of getting that. I'd like for you guys to have that option moving forward.
I'm trying to leave the tool in the box.
And leave the tool in the toolbox. Exactly. That's what I'm suggesting. I'm just kind of counting the votes based on the comments that we're getting tonight. And I'd like you to keep that in the toolbox because I think it does have merit.
The only thing I will withdraw, but as I'm withdrawing it, I want council to understand, because you have one failed advisory committee. It is very petty to not think that another committee would work. We go through life with failures. All of us, every one of us. Did you give up? We kept trudging through. Might have been marriage. Might have been, it wasn't the first lady I looked at, and now it's the second one, and I married her. But I married her. I thought that's a bad way of explaining it, right? But
I hope she's not watching you right now either.
She's with me for 30 years. Well, it was 5 years of struggle in the beginning, so 35 years. But if we go back and look at that other committee and learn what failed inside that committee to go forward, and I wasn't here during that time, so I'm sorry I missed that, because that makes us a better person as we put our committees together.
All the more reason to pull that back, just a suggestion, pull that back right now. You can do some homework and so can the rest of council. You've got two incoming council people who are also watching this, and they can do their homework as well. If you're going to do it, maybe it needs to be time bound. Maybe it doesn't need to be open. You know, if you have a standing committee that's supposed to serve for a specific amount of time to solve this problem, that would be my number one suggestion moving forward, is that you make it time bound. If it's the end of that time, if you want to extend it, you can. But I'm just kind of reading the room and trying to keep the tool open because I do think it does have merit.
May I just ask one question? What would be available to this board that is not already, that would prohibit them from being able to bring suggestions forward? What data is not available to the professionals that are listed here that we need to create said advisory board in order for them to make any sort of recommendations in the future?
So we have professionals sitting in this audience right now.
Which I have complete respect for. It's not about that. So
Why not? These professionals sitting in this audience is one power. But when we put a collective group together of 3 to 5 professionals to brainstorm, to help, that's what you have. You have a better collective of information of how to solve something instead of one bringing something to the table.
But do we need to utilize staff hours and city clerks and more government bureaucracy for them to get together and put their heads together? Or are there data points that they don't have that maybe the city could provide them irregardless of this board status?
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to.
Which is why I think the idea has merit and needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
It's not a hard no by any means, especially when it pertains to a subject that is so important.
The scary part of this one is
It's getting all the way around to the idea.
everybody has this fear of the budget committee, and it's going to blow up and do the same thing again. Who to say it's not? I wasn't here.
I wasn't.
Don't know. You don't know.
That's right.
Don and I were here.
But here's the thing. You had somebody within 24 hours get 77 names on a list without even trying to say that this is an important subject matter. And that's
That it very much is.
Because it is.
That's a powerful thing in 24 hours, just saying hi to people. And I didn't ask for that.
Right.
That was somebody taking off the notes of what we did 2 weeks ago.
Understood.
So I'll pull it off. We'll re-adjourn to another agenda date. I will, sorry Robin, be talking to you a lot as far as what happened to the budget. Why did it fail? Because I don't know. And then we will re-interject this with that information into there so we can come back to it.
And Tracy, in 2 weeks and 1 day, my term will end, and we can actually have these conversations.
Yes.
And I'll be more than willing to help.
That's funny.
Stan?
No,
No.
I can't.
Okay.
We don't have a motion or a second on the floor to discuss.
Okay.
So with that, I appreciate your approach. I love your passion. I want to use it.
Absolutely. No, that's
I
good
want to
stuff.
use that.
Mayor, I just want to, if I could real quickly reiterate the significance and the importance. If there are people in the community who have ideas and expertise and they want to help, they can do that now.
Amen.
They can do that right now. So I think that's extremely important. They don't have to wait 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year. They can do that now. So.
Okay. With that,
Don, somebody asked how.
Bring forth the ideas and the information. Bring forth those suggestions. A lot of times ideas will be brought forth that have already been vetted out. But I'm just saying, if people in the community have those ideas and those expertise, bring those suggestions forth to us. Any of the elected board members, you could bring that forth. I just told you, bring
All
them
right.
forward to the elected board.
Thank you.
Or anything like that.
Thank you. Art House Councilman Tracy Grubbs, you got the advantage of
I'm
having
gonna
Cameron.
Yeah, I'm going to make it real easy. Cameron said it all. She's
True.
doing a beautiful job. She showed the statistics. $172,000 influxed into our community. And if residents are always trying to figure out how our community runs and functions, it's income coming into our businesses. So to have that entity bring in that type of money, but then turn around and help over 3,600 kids in a year, that's amazing. So that's all I got.
Great work.
It's hard to follow her up.
Yeah, I know.
Roundtable of elected officials met on Monday. There was a lengthy agenda, including the introduction of the city managers. They all spoke from Deltona, New Smyrna Beach, and Lake Helen. We had a Hurricane Milton recovery update. There were multiple slides. Most of it was very repetitive. But the one thing that I wanted to reiterate with that was, well, actually there are two things. One, Transform 386, the county's website, has a multitude of resources for our residents and our businesses. And we need to continue. I know we promoted on our own social media. We need to continue to do that. The other thing that was discussed, and yours truly was kind of the one that pushed it and in a way, was the Nova Canal and the need to continue to collaborate on in pushing the state for solutions on something that does not work. We were very supportive of Daytona Beach's efforts to get the Army Corps study out of that. They're still a ways away from getting that, and there'll be projects that come out of that. We need to help with the advocacy for that. Congressman Waltz was a proponent of that study, and obviously he's stepping away. Hopefully his replacement will be just as instrumental in getting funding for those things, because we know what happens upstream affects us. And Daytona, South Daytona, Holly Hill, all in wholehearted agreement with our efforts to continue to push the state. The other thing that I mentioned about the Nova Canal, the cleanup project, I think is an embarrassment. What the state's done this year in calling this a major project is nothing more than simple maintenance, which they should have been doing anyway. They're doing it in reverse of the direction they're supposed to be doing. When you start cleaning a funnel at the top,
you just make water go to the bottom even faster. And we saw the result of that. And sand after 80 years does not stay sideways forever. You need to do some regrading. And that project, and watching it, and it's finally getting down this way.
Did they terminate the initial contractor?
Yeah, from my understanding is yes.
Failure to perform?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, this is maintenance that should have been happening anyway, and it went years without happening. And we need to continue to be very loud about it. And I will continue to be very loud about it as long as you all will let me. Well, actually, you don't need to tell me one way or another. I'll be loud as I want moving forward about that disaster. We also heard from Cammie Dewey, Strategic Planning Basin Coordinator from the St. Johns River Management District, on stormwater retention and water consumption requirements under SB 712, how they've changed with the state to complicate things a little bit more. Holly Smith, the Public Affairs Administrator from the Volusia County Tax Collector's Office, also talked about the Kid Tag Art Sponsorship Program that they're doing. And I appreciate the fact that in a 2.5-hour meeting that she only took just a few minutes. That was the elected officials roundtable. First Step Shelter meeting, that was last week. We talked about that the shelter is almost at 90% capacity, and the results of the safe zone outside is being heavily utilized by all the cities, including ours, and that was an element that did not exist when the shelter first opened, and that's changed.
That's probably been the most beneficial component.
Without a doubt. And with that, certainly, if you guys look to up your contribution in the following year a little bit, the First Step Shelter would be very happy with that. Port Orange Chamber of Commerce, we did not meet this month with Chamber leadership, but I know Scott did. And they look forward to those conversations with you as you take over, Mr. Mayor-elect. There was a ribbon cutting today at the Tiki Adventure Zone, formerly Go-Kart City. They're now open. It's absolutely beautiful. I was there reminiscing about days in the batting cages with my boys when they were small. They're there, and then of course they've got new cars on the track. So I think there will be a lot of families that take advantage of that, and will be very happy with that opening. Coffee and Connections for the Chamber has been moved up a week to this Friday. So if anybody wants to go to Coffee and Connections Friday morning at 8:30 at, what's the name of that coffee house?
Is it Copperline?
Copperline, thank you. I was having a moment. We've been here a little while. So that is this coming Friday at 8:30 a.m. Volusia Flagler TPO, Mr. Foley.
Nothing to report. We actually meet tomorrow, but we don't meet tomorrow because there's no quorum. So there's your report.
Thank you very much. Item 28, farewell message. Drew, you and me, the last, I've had 14 years here, you've had 12 years, and this is it for you and me. And the job never ends, but it does for us tonight.
Yes.
What would you like to say?
I don't really have, I mean, this elaborate speech or anything. It's been 12 years. You know, I kind of believe in term limits so that somebody else gets a chance. And so we got one here, and we got another one elected that'll be sworn in a couple of weeks. And they'll get their chance to, and you know, bring their ideas and do their thing. It really has been a blessing to sit up here. It's very humbling to have the voters put their trust in you, and you know, to serve. And I got elected in 2012, and it was unchallenged 2 times, 2 consecutive elections. So I you know, saw it through, and I didn't want to be one of those people to complain without having like walked in the shoes or whatever. And so when I retired in 2012 from the fire department, I decided to, well, actually a little before I retired, I decided to do it. And started campaigning shortly after I retired and campaigned for nearly 11 months and kept track of a lot of things. I knocked on or door hung 5,976 doors in probably about 8-9 months of doing that. Never knocked on a Sunday, and of course if it was raining or storming, I stayed out of it, but did a lot of door hangings and talked to a lot of people, had a lot of doors slammed in my face. They didn't care. It just didn't matter. So, but I was undeterred and got elected and served my time. So actually, I really have been blessed to serve with incredible council. Scott, Don for all these years, Tracy, Reed more recently, Bob Ford, Marilyn Ford. It's just been a list of people and plenty of Christmas parades, countless trips to Tallahassee to help out, and if you count all the committees and the pension thing, probably over the 12 years, over 1,000 meetings, I'm sure. And so I honestly, we made a great hire in Wayne. I'm glad he came back through. He's hired incredible department heads and employees and promoted people, and we got a fire chief from within. We got a great chief of police, and so like one of the things I'm really glad that he came back here because I feel like he's done an incredible job and he's made great hires, which make this job easier. It's thankless. You get a lot of criticism, and I'm okay with that. I got big shoulders, but I'm really looking forward to just having some more time off and occasionally enjoying a Taco Tuesday somewhere. But yeah, it's been a great run, and I'm, like I said, looking forward to having some more free time. It's a lot of effort and a lot of hours to do it right, and so I still work a full-time job, and I had this, and so there weren't ever too many days to rest.
That picture of you on that name badge has changed quite a bit to where you are today. No doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Mayor, just before I knew you were going to have some comments, but I want to comment that Drew and I both worked together in public safety for over 20 years together, and I'm going to have some comments on December the 3rd, so I'm going to save some of those for that night because I know you both will be here. But I just want to say that it's very rare that you find somebody who devotes as much of their life and their time and their energy and their service and the sacrifices away from their homes and their families to serve the community in the best way you possibly can. And like you said, there's a lot of praise, there's a lot of thanks, there's a lot of criticism, but it's all part of the process. And I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
and, you're not going to be missed because we know how to get a hold of you.
There you go. I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be
right?
around, but
So,
I appreciate that because you're right. You hit on that, and you know as well as I do, and probably better. You do give up. I can't tell you how many birthdays I missed and holidays because of the fire department and that job and that commitment. So you do miss a lot, and I couldn't have done it without an incredibly supportive wife and family. And so, hats off to them because they, no matter what crazy idea I had, they always supported it, whether they liked it or not. So I just been incredibly blessed, and am looking forward to some more free time for sure.
Well, it has been a joy and an honor of a lifetime to serve as your mayor. After all, we do live in the most family-friendly community. And I take a look at our Parks and Rec, the programs we have. It's the envy of many. Whether you're age 8 or age 80, I've always said we have something for you. We have one of the safest communities in the entire state, one of the most beautiful places to live, and so much more just within our reach right here. And we're blessed in many ways. I have made friends along the way. Drew?
Sir.
And that really speaks well to the quality of the people in this community. I have more friends now than I've had at any point in my life. But as my dad told me, no one does anything big alone. It takes a team of committed people willing to work together, make sacrifices, and accept the challenges to make a difference. You don't stop loving your community just because your term ends. I was born here, I'm going to die here, and in the meantime, we find a way to make a difference in the lives of others. And I feel that that's my calling. For the past 20 plus years, I've served on the advisory board of the Salvation Army, and I've been a volunteer in our schools, and that will continue. Matter of fact, Thursday night, if you're not doing anything, I'm calling the home opener for the Atlantic High School boys varsity basketball. So if you'd like to come out,
Thursday night.
we'll be doing that. As for what's next for me, I don't know. I've got to be smart enough to listen to whatever God tells me, and we'll figure that out from there. But my challenge to the incoming council is this. My friends, never forget who you are. Never forget why you serve. Never forget who you serve and why you decided to run for office in the first place. The challenges are many, but together you can make a difference, not only for Port Orange, but our community as a whole. And the job is never finished. It'll continue because we'll always have needs, and I know that you'll step up. My challenge is this: go and make a difference. No matter how big, no matter how small, if you made a difference in one person's life today, that transcends, that rolls, that grows. But go make a difference. Go! The meeting's adjourned.
Perfect.